You are listening to MINDSHOCK True Crime. This is the Jodi Huisentruit case. Episode 3, Media Timeline 2. We are continuing the examination of all news reports and documentaries as they happened since this case first broke in 1995, when this news anchor went missing. One of the most perplexing cases I have ever looked at. No shortage of rabbit holes. No shortage of possible variables pointing to some kind of top-down corruption scandal cover-up in the drug corridor that is Mason City, which a lot of people don't know about. I'm, of course, your host, Bruce McGuire, and we will continue our examinations into this case in typical MINDSHOCK fashion with logic and reason at the forefront, attempting not to fall for any logical fallacies, unlike all the other media coverage out there. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, call podcast requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. Unless, of course, you're with us here live, drop them in the live chat. I'll try to get to all of them, and you could become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. So, welcome everyone. Jeff, U1P, Sandro. Hopefully everybody has seen the first 2 episodes in our deep dive unlike any other. I mean, this is quite twisted up. We've gone over all of this footage, news footage, and all the people that are stationed. I don't know if they're all coked up, but something is just extremely off about all these individuals and the cops. Something about the local po-po is extremely off as well, and apparently it's all the tip of the iceberg. Apparently there is so much more here, which of course we will be going over. So, let's go to the next major media. So, we rounded out the previous episode with Tony Jackson, the 1998 break. And it's kind of weird. You know, these rap lyrics and this silo that was searched, but again, this farm silo, silage has nothing to do with a silo. So I'm not sure how these investigators got to these conclusions. And around Tiffin doesn't mean in Tiffin. Welcome, Scott Hawkins and Sarah Catherine. It seems like there could be so many other potential areas that Jackson could be referring to, even if Jackson himself wasn't responsible, because if he's super low IQ and he didn't come up with the lyrics himself, he could be repeating the lyrics from an associate of his who may or may not have been directly responsible, and simply made up the lyrics referring to something he heard from another associate. We could be 2 or 3 parties removed, and Jackson could still have been accurate with those lyrics. No follow-up search, no ground-penetrating radar has ever been performed on this Jackson location in Tiffin. And I did some follow-up research with the cadaver dogs that were used. So 2 out of the 3 cadaver dogs did hit. So apparently there could have been confusion if a human remains were once there and were no longer there, and animal remains were there. So that's one possibility, but again, there's so apparently it hasn't been definitively ruled out. But for whatever reason, they said the lead was not credible. Therefore, no more money was allocated to any follow-up searches. So they should have definitely did a follow-up searches with different dogs, even more well-trained dogs if possible, but they used specialized cadaver dogs. So these were not general use dogs like in the initial search around the apartments. So, let's go now to 1999, where Find Jodi. Let me make sure I got this right. I believe Find Jodi had this documentary. Oh, my bad. 99 was Jackson. Oh, wait. We went over 98 Jackson. We didn't go over the 99 Jackson coverage, did we? Oh, no, we did not. Okay, so let's continue with the 1999 coverage. The news coverage here. Okay. Fair use, obviously. Obviously nothing but fair use all the time here.
New potential evidence in the case is sitting untested in the Iowa crime lab.
Those items were uncovered last fall when the I-Team led police to an isolated farm. Investigative reporter Caroline Lowe explains how the search began with a simple rhyme.
Because I did a good acting role on him, he thinks I'm his psychopathic friend.
This man's been in jail a lot, mostly on drunk driving charges. Last spring, he was on the other side of the river, looking out of the Ramsey County Jail with his new friend, Tony Jackson. The man says he decided to con Jackson behind bars, so he acted like a big shot, making up stories of heinous crimes, dismissing Tony Jackson as a punk. He said that is what made Jackson confess.
I was looking out the day room window, and he came up to me. That's when we started talking again, and then he just brought it up. He says, I abducted a anchor woman and killed her, he said, just like that.
But jailhouse talk doesn't mean much without proof, in this case, a body. So he continued to con Jackson, till one day, he says, the rapist recited a chilling rap rhyme. A rhyme he thought might hold clues to the whereabouts of anchorwoman Jodi Huisentruit, abducted from her apartment parking lot more than 3 years ago.
She's a stiffin around Tiffin, and pilot a silage and a by-low, low below, off a highway by a grave road.
Oh, we didn't have the full lyrics were not reported before, so this is the full lyrics. She's a stiffin around Tiffin, in a pilage of silage, in a by-low, low below, off a highway by a grave road. Yeah, that's kind of specific. That's quite specific here.
What did it mean? The WCCO I-Team was able to confirm that our source indeed had been in the same cell block as Tony Jackson. Our source was also able to give us information about Jackson that matched information the I-Team had confirmed about the convicted rapist.
She's a stiffin around Tiffin.
About 3 hours south of Mason City, where Huisentruit and Jackson lived, is a tiny town called Tiffin. The distance was important to the I-Team because it fit another possible clue. Heavy miles put on Tony Jackson's car around the time the anchorwoman vanished.
You know what's weird? Like, how many people know about Tiffin as a town anyway? Like, because a lot of states have these small towns that nobody ever heard of. Jeff UNP says, Tony Eloquent Jackson. Again, I'm not... Okay, maybe he is a lyrical genius. Like, there are some rappers that are just... They're really, really low IQ and unintelligent. But somehow, their rhymes are quite impressive. Their lexicon expands exponentially when it comes to rap music. It's kind of like let's make the parallel to, let's say, maybe Ozzy Osbourne or some of these rockers. I mean, they can barely talk, but as soon as they start singing, you swear it's a different person. All of a sudden, the stuttering, the sputtering, all of it goes away and they sing perfect. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Jeff UMP says, can you show his mugshot? I wasn't even so shocked of his crimes given his room temp IQ. Look, they were severe crimes, not saying that. Jeff UNP says, prison does that to you sometimes. So, we had a local in here in episode 2 in the chat dropping some bombshells, which I will be going over. I just want to go over them in order. I want to keep it in order. I will be going over his lead that he dropped in the chat. How popular is Tiffin in that? Like, if this is a town nobody's ever heard of, and he just randomly brought it up, that's weird.
The I-Team has also learned Tony Jackson has no alibi until 11 hours after Jodi vanished, leaving him plenty of time to drive to Tiffin and back. So using the wrap as a map, the I-Team went to Tiffin, Iowa.
Off a highway
The only highway through town is this one.
by a grave road.
Could a grave road mean a road by a graveyard? Just outside of town along Highway 6, we found this cemetery. We turned down the first road and found this abandoned farmstead.
And pilots of silage and a by-low, low below.
There are few silos in this part of Iowa, so this one, less than a mile from the graveyard, grabbed our attention.
There's not much traffic on this road. It doesn't really go anyplace, you know.
The I-Team wondered, could this rundown property hold a secret that might lead us to Jodi? So the I-Team rented the land from the property owner, who confirmed it stood empty for at least 10 years, including the summer of the abduction.
It's fairly quiet here, and you know, you could kind of do what you want to do without anybody else knowing.
Our next step, to organize a search. October 1998. The I-Team leads a caravan to the silo. We pay most of the expenses to bring in some of the finest police cadaver dogs in the country.
That's interesting. So this was paid for by the news station? So not just the finest in the state, the finest in the country? What are the chances? What are the chances they messed this up? 2 out of 3 dogs? 2 out of 3 dogs hit. Jeff UNP says, this all sounds possible, but how did this Einstein abducted her and planned it so good she could scream for a whole minute? Here's what I'm thinking. I wonder if he wasn't even the guy that abducted her. What if he was passed off to dump the body and they didn't care if he got caught with the body because they know he's some random criminal? I'm just thinking out loud here. Again, I do not claim anything is true or untrue. This is MINDSHOCK, where the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure, and we're not even sure about that. I do not claim anything is true or untrue.
They know death when they smell it, human death. Marco is coming off a hot streak. In 10 days, he found 2 bodies, missing for 7 years.
Okay, these appear to be great dogs with great records. And this looks like the video of the actual search, right? If this is the video of the actual search, these are some of the finest dogs in the country. The claim, now maybe this isn't even Jodi, but the claim that 2 out of the 3 dogs are mistaken, I don't know. They should have brought in some ground penetrating radar here. And again, apparently there's only been 1 search, no follow-up search of any kind, no GPR used.
Gunner's got an even more impressive track record, helping locate about 10 bodies. Nelson's nose has helped find lots of bodies too, and landed a $7,000 hit on his head. Bad guys want Nelson dead.
He is one of the better dogs in the country.
The dog handlers work in law enforcement. Some wouldn't let us show their faces because they sometimes go undercover. They will only do a search like this one if other law enforcement is involved. With the land rented and the dogs lined up, the I-Team asked Mason City Police to be there. They brought in the local sheriff's department, since Tiffin is outside their jurisdiction. Nelson is the first dog in and out of the silo. The handlers insist we keep back as each dog independently examines the 3-acre site.
Another thing, because again, I brought up this image of silage. Silage has nothing to do with a silo. So this is silage. It's just like a pile. Looks like a pile of dirt. So, but I wonder, again, if Tony Jackson is low IQ, I mean, I don't know, would you call a silo silage? I mean, I don't know if this is the right location, but that doesn't mean there's not a body in this location as well, because the owners are saying nobody's around, so you could dump bodies here.
Gunner jumps right in. The handlers talk only to the other cops, not to the I-Team. The dogs search a collapsed barn and other dilapidated shacks. Finally, it's Marco's turn to go inside. Clearly, something has happened. Our first clue that the dogs may have discovered something comes when we spot Nelson playing catch with a ball. Before the search, his owner told us that's how he rewards the dog when he detects the odor of human remains. Authorities start huddling in front of the silo, pointing inside, taking pictures. Then they bring in the shovels. The I-Team has no evidence Tony Jackson was ever on this property, But our research found he was familiar with this part of Iowa. He attended high school in Ottumwa. He played basketball tournaments in these cities. A year after Jodi's abduction, he moved to Muscatine. And Jackson kept coming back to visit, even after he moved 6 hours away to the Twin Cities.
This is interesting. So they actually connected him to the exact area. Not necessarily Tiffin. But if Jackson is familiar and is constantly returning to neighboring areas, I mean, that's something. That's something that's downplayed. That's something that downplayed in the articles we went over on Jackson. Les Xylophone says, this case is too small for me. What does that mean? Jeff UNP says, I'm surprised he knew what pilage was. I could right off the bat, he did know what a silage was, such a bright young man. See, if he's from farm country, he would know both silo and silage. Now, pilage is an interesting term. People usually don't use the term pilage. I actually can't I can't recall anybody ever using pilage. So pilage is not a word. Pile age. Huh, this is weird. The U.S. Forest Service uses pile age. Piling and burning. Pile age. Yeah, I don't know. Is this the only usage of pilage ever? I mean, obviously you can use what is known as poetic license to you know, modify words to make them rhyme with other words, but... Les Xylophone says, it means it wasn't a big enough case to make it out here to Colorado. I believe it was a national case as it happened in the 90s, wasn't it? I remember, I mean, I vaguely remember it, but I don't remember if I remember it from the year that it happened. I mean, within a few years, I remember it being mentioned. I never really looked deep into it, but... Goof lingo. Jeff.
We know in part because the I-Team has obtained these records of Jackson's cell phone calls, which show calls that he made a month before he was jailed on a rape rampage in the Twin Cities in 1997. On one trip back, they put him within minutes of the silo. The next day, they put him near this secluded farmhouse north of Mason City. The call was made just after a woman who lived there says Jackson handcuffed and raped her.
And I was crying the whole time. And I never really fought back. He had the gun to my head.
Back to our search for Jodi at the abandoned farm near...
So, his targets are a bunch of white women? In which case, obviously, Jodi would match the M.O. So there's 4 women, and there were 2 additional assaults. So that's 6 known victims between Minnesota and Iowa. So they were young white women, age 18 to 31. Wow. First victim, 18-year-old woman. Cottage Grove. Second victim, 31-year-old, St. Paul. Third victim, 21-year-old, Inver Grove Heights. And Jodi Huisentruit was 27, so fitting into the 18 to 31-year-old. She kind of looks a little younger than 27, too.
Tiffin, where investigators armed with shovels are digging the bottom out of the silo because 2 out of 3 dogs sensed human remains.
So, okay, we got a couple issues here because on the coverage we previously watched and some of the more recent news articles discounting Jackson, but apparently his phone records prove he was nearby Tiffin. That's huge. That's huge. How are they going to say this lead is discounted? See, if Jackson is connected to corrupt police, I wonder what's going on here.
The first dog that went in reacted.
It was Johnson County Detective Doug Vanoy's job to witness each dog in the silo.
The third dog.
Did they say his name was Linoy's job? What?
Reacted.
It was Johnson County Detective Doug Vanoy's job to
Vanoy's job?
Witness each dog in the silo.
The third dog also had a reaction.
What does it look like when a cadaver dog reacts? Nelson's owner, Kim DeMars, a Kansas police chief, let us watch a training exercise months later.
One of the planks does have cadaver material on it.
Nelson's job, pick that one out from among the planks with animal remains.
Nelson, Mark, go find Fred.
Well, that's interesting. So this dog specifically can even find remains, even when it's human remains, even when mixed with animal remains. That's how good these dogs are.
When cadaver dogs react to the odor of human remains, it's called an alert.
Is that Fred? Show me. Show me. Is that Fred? Good boy. Good boy, yeah. He did the same thing in this silo that he did out here on the field. He gave me a full alert indicating that there was an odor of a human body that had been there.
But the lead becomes more mysterious when it becomes clear there is no body in the silo.
So Jeff UNP says he said he never went to Tiffin, so he was lying. Well, technically, the phone records show he was near Tiffin. I think what did it say? Within a few miles. I don't know if he was within Tiffin. I don't know if the cell phone records showed that he was within Tiffin city limits or town limits. So he may or may not have been lying in terms of that phone call. Also, do we know if that was definitely him on the phone? I don't know if they had his voice recorded, but yeah, I don't know. Supposedly the voice. So if he really never was in Tiffin, the records don't prove that he was directly in Tiffin. But if he said he was never anywhere near the area, I forgot his phrasing. I think he said he's never been to Tiffin. I'm not sure if he said he's never been anywhere around it, because apparently he's from that area. Jeff UNP says his masterpiece stated also near Tiffin. Around Tiffin. Yeah, around Tiffin. But this silo is in Tiffin. So there's a few possibilities here. And apparently, like 2 out of 3 dogs is pretty good. 2 out of 3 of the best dogs in the country, there might be human remains there. Now, whether or not that's Jodi, that's a completely separate issue. And whether or not he's specific... You know it'd be weird. What if he did dump a body there, but it wasn't Jodi? Or if he really did kill Jodi and dump her somewhere, but not at that silo location, what does that mean? Critter Mama says bloodhounds follow a person's individual scent, so you can find people still alive, not just... These are cadaver dogs. So these are specifically cadaver dogs right here.
So how do they explain the dog's behavior?
So that tells me something is there, or something has been there. So the odor is still present.
I wouldn't be surprised if the body was moved to a location that the person felt the body would never be discovered.
Oh, we also didn't discuss that. If he did... okay, new theory here. If Jackson is related somehow, whether he kidnapped her or killed her or not, or he was simply hired out to dispose of the body by either corrupt cops or other parties, and they didn't even care if he got caught or not, what if the body was moved? Or if this is some kind of bigger operation? I wonder, when the snitch reported the lyrics, did someone move the body? In which case, did these 2 out of 3 dogs, did they accurately hit, but the body was no longer there? If it was in fact Jodi. Curiosities here. Curiosities.
That would not be unusual from your research.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Vernon Geberth is a nationally known homicide expert. He wrote the book most police departments use for murder investigations. The I-Team reviewed the rap rhyme and the farm search with him.
Now, how the dogs do that, we don't know. That's why they're dogs. We're people. The fact that we can use these as instruments to find something, I think the fact that they got an alert in that silo in Tiffin is fantastic. I mean, I would be excited if it was my case.
Those dogs reacted to something, and we just had to figure out what it was.
It kind of sends chills down you when he does alert, because so far he has not been wrong.
Detective Inouye says the dogs clawed a couple of boards.
Wait a second. So one of the 2 of the 3 dogs used that alerted has a perfect record? Wow. Okay. So now you have to be a coincidence theorist to think the dog is wrong. So this is a dog with a perfect... These are 3 dogs, 3 of some of the best dogs in the country, not specifically Iowa. 2 of the 3 hit, and 1 of the 2 that hit of the 3 that were used supposedly has a perfect record. Jeff UNP says the rhyme does sound authentic, like at least written by a brother. Yeah, I'm not sure that the snitch made anything up. The snitch might be totally legit, and so Jackson could have came up with it himself, or he could be repeating this rhyme from somebody else. Jackson could be guilty. Yeah. Well, even if he's not personally responsible, he might know, he might be tied to the case somehow. If he was just tasked with disposing of the body. And then when the snitch came forward, corrupt cops could have alerted whatever to move the body because they didn't want the body found. For example, if Jodi did have somebody's DNA under her fingertips, under her fingernails.
He wondered if the stains could be human blood, and if so, whose. So he immediately sent them to the Iowa Crime Lab to be analyzed. 4 months later, this ground is frozen. The lead is stalled. Potential forensic evidence still not tested.
Jodi Huisentruit case was the biggest case in Iowa at the time. It was on national media across the country. Yet you're telling me there's a laboratory in Iowa that hasn't looked at the evidence in 4 months. There's something wrong. Really, really wrong.
Okay, so now we have yet another individual here. What does that mean? Something wrong. That means corruption. And we have the state representative, Kuiker, stating that the police chief and the mayor of Mason City didn't want him writing a letter pushing for this case to be solved and bringing awareness to it. Who else thinks that something is rotten in Denmark here, for lack of a better saying here? We have multiple individuals now saying there's something fishy. There's some kind of top-down corruption that does not want this case solved. So this is actually very curious because this seems like this was a real lead then. This seems like this was real and the body might have been there even if it is no longer there. Whether Jackson himself dropped the body there or was directly involved or simply he knew those who were, and he was using that knowledge to get clout, because from the testimony of this other individual in the jail, the individual used basically, these psychological tactics of pretending Jackson was some lowly punk who never did anything. While he was some big-time criminal, Jackson took offense. He may have been trying to take credit for somebody who he heard maybe did something in Tiffin with, killed this reporter and dropped her in Tiffin. he may have been trying to steal credit, for the street cred, to try to appear to be like a more hardened criminal because, his assaults, nobody cares about assaults in prison. That's not impressive. But if he did a murder, that could gain him some criminal credibility, even if he himself was not responsible, but he knew who was, or heard something from the rumor mill, regardless of whether he thought it might be true or not.
It is a long time. I admit that. I'm the first guy to admit that.
The administrator for the Iowa Crime Lab told the I-Team he hopes to finally test the boards by spring. But the lab is understaffed and has a huge backlog.
They couldn't test this for months, a year? What? Get the FBI involved. This was a huge case.
This case has been pushed back because of cases where there are suspects in custody and cases where they are going to trial and must have.
Well, not to mention that state rep pushing for this to get all the attention. You could have had, funds raised to get this tested from an independent lab or whatever. It looks like they're sitting on it on purpose, right? Because you could do, fundraising and all that.
Their physical evidence analyzed.
The boards weren't the only thing that caught the dog's attention. They found this strip of red fabric hidden near a ramshackle shed. Jodi's closet was packed with clothes. Only the killer knows exactly what she wore that morning. For that reason, the I-Team has disguised the red dress we believe she had on.
Someone else who gives us a story each morning.
4 months later, no one at that Tiffin farm can forget the search or the rap rhyme that led us all there.
She's a stiffin' around Tiffin and pilage of silage in a low below, off a highway by a grave road.
I'm not stupid. It's not unlike a psychopathic sexual sadist to brag to another person whom he thinks is a sexual predator like himself about what he has done. By composing a rap song in which you just give a little bit of information, internally you're reliving it and laughing what you've pulled off.
As intriguing as this lead may be, it is no proof Tony Jackson abducted Jodi Huisentruit. What could be clues could also be coincidence.
I've been in homicide all the time. I like coincidence. Coincidence many times puts us back on the investigative track.
Yeah, if you're not writing it off as coincidence, right? I like this guy. This guy does not seem like all these other weirdos. So here's the thing too. I would want to know if there's any recordings of Tony Jackson rapping, or any of if there's any other of his lyrics available, to see if this matches in style, tempo, etc. Because that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Again, wouldn't prove it was true, but this guy, I like this guy. This guy is astute. This guy is astute, and he's not afraid to call funny business, like with the crime lab not even testing the blood. So was it never tested? Let me track down if it was ever tested at all. Because as of this report in '99, it still hadn't been tested.
For the I-Team, I'm Caroline Lowe.
Serial rapist Tony Jackson is serving a life sentence in Minnesota. Mason City police tell the I-Team they'd like to interview him soon. Jackson denies abducting Huisentruit and told the I-Team that not only has he never been to Tiffin, Iowa, he's never even heard of it, and he has no idea where it is.
Okay, so I see here
that I'm in the farm.
So I see here. So there were several samples of materials and fluids mixed into silage and soil. So there were specific samples at the state crime lab. So the state crime lab processed the backlog materials. Results did not yield what they were hoping for. I don't see a specific. So we're determined to be agricultural byproduct, animal decomp, or silage fluids rather than human blood. So that was the official result here. I wonder if that was false, because if there's a cover-up, were they really remains, and was it really Jodi? And did they simply say it wasn't? Because in a lot of corruption cases, it occurs in the crime lab, either swapped labels or falsified reports. So if there is corruption involved, obviously they would cover that up, and they certainly had the time to do it since it got backlogged for many, many, many months. So yeah, we don't really have this. Jeff UNP says that lying makes him suspicious. Did they confront him with the phone records? So let's say they did confront him. He could say, yeah, I was in that area. I just never heard of Tiffin because it's such a small town. Let's look at the population of Tiffin. Also, depending on how stupid he is, because you would think if you regularly visit a particular area, you would know the small town. Wow, only 7,659 residents. 2020, there were 4,512 residents. Okay, let me see. What about 1995? I mean, they do have a water tower, so... Wow. In 1995, there was only 489 people living there. Wait a second, that's crazy. So there was less than 500 people living there. So I suppose it's plausible. So this, I think it might have even been referred to as a village instead of a town at that point. Huh. Interesting. So, okay, so it has almost no people in it. So, I suppose it's plausible you can be within a few miles of a place without knowing it exists, pre-internet. Would it even, I suppose it would be on a map. So, it has a water tower as of this report in 1990. Now, let's see if it had it back then. Okay, so it did not have the water tower in 95. Okay, so yeah, without that water tower that says Tiffin on it, I suppose you might not know the name of the town, right? I don't know. Huh. Jeff UNP says, think they don't make mistakes. The one dog had a flawless record. Yes, supposedly one of the two of the three that were used, two hit, and one of the two that hit supposedly had a perfect record and had never made a false hit before. Never false alerted. So, again, that doesn't mean that it was Jodi that was there, but it's plausible if the body was moved that it was once there, and if there's crime lab corruption. All right, let's move on to the next piece of media here. So let's go. But also what's weird is how apparently this was all abandoned, which that's very fishy too, because like why not keep it on the table, because you don't know for sure. So that is curious. It's almost like if there is police corruption and they wanted to get rid of it. So that was 99. So now we're going to skip. We're going to go all the way to 2004, which is when I believe this is the Jodi website came out with a documentary. So let's look at this documentary here. And they're going to include a bunch more people and interviews here. So we'll get a lot better idea of what is going on here. Obviously fair use all the time. Definitely fair use. Huisentruit File documentary. 2004. It's a few years now, 5 years after this Jackson report.
A little over 9 years ago, a former anchorwoman for KIMT TV in Mason City disappeared right here. Jodi Huisentruit was late for work. An employee called and woke her up a little after 4 a.m. Jodi woke up, got ready, grabbed her things, came out of this apartment.
This is a snazzy documentary. They actually waited until it was raining, just like that day, and they even got her Miata, or another Miata, to try to match this. This is interesting.
And walked to her Mazda Miata car, parked right here. She reached in her pocket, grabbed her keys, and Jodi was gone. Word spread through Mason City like wildfire, and Mason City Police Lieutenant Ron Vanderweerd was on the case then and remembers every detail.
John Vanderweerd? Or Weir?
The place we checked, of course, was her apartment.
Is it just me, or are all the cops and news station people in Mason City weird? Like, there hasn't been one non-weird cop, so, I mean, look at this guy. I don't know if he has Down syndrome. I don't know if he's drunk. He doesn't look coked up here. He looks like he's on downers. Whole lot of downing going on here, syndrome or otherwise. Yeah, this is weird.
And we did find some circumstances there that made us suspicious immediately.
He's stuttering while saying the word circumstances? How many drugs are flowing through this town?
Immediately.
The police were not called until after 7 in the morning, more than 3 hours after producer Amy Coons placed the wake-up call.
I called her at 10 after 4. I said, Jodi, are you awake? You coming into work? She goes, what time is it? You know, the typical questions.
And then we began the hunt for her.
KIMT TV news anchor Jodi Huisentruit failed to report to work this morning.
Private investigator Jim Feldhaus of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, has followed the Huisentruit case from the start. He was hired by the Huisentruit family. Feldhaus has worked on hundreds of cases in his career, but remains especially fascinated by the Huisentruit case. Today, he spends much of his time working on solving.
I don't know if this was the this red outfit that they censored in the 99 report, as if they think she might have been wearing this.
The mystery behind Jodi's disappearance.
As she was going to the car,
I wonder if that red outfit was one of the only known outfits that she had that was not still in the apartment, and that's why they think she was wearing that. But Fieldhouse here, look how he seems normal. He doesn't seem like he's on drugs or weird or ashamed of something he potentially could have done. And also keep in mind, his leads were ignored for years, according to the state rep.
she was attacked from behind. A scream was heard. Apparently she was struck and dragged unconscious or dead to the assailant's waiting vehicle.
There was not a lot of evidence left at the scene or anywhere else.
But there was evidence of a struggle. Jodi's possessions were scattered near her car and drag marks were left from her shoes.
Red Italian spike high heels, a hairdryer, hairspray. Some people say her car keys.
This is the largest investigation I believe Mason City has ever been involved in by far.
Friend Tammy Baker is one of Jodi's closest friends and one of the last to see her alive.
I remember calling the Mason City Police just to say, here's my number. I'm a friend of Jodi's and just spent 2 weekends with her, so if I can help.
Nearby neighbors heard a woman's screams but didn't call police. Mason City resident Randy Linderman was driving to work when he...
Also, look at that wooded area. I'm not saying the van is a red herring or anything, but this wooded area in these early wee hours in darkness and cloudiness of the rain, I wonder, potential assailants could have also been waiting in this area, in the trees.
Police. Mason City resident Randy Linderman was driving to work when he saw a suspicious van in the parking lot of Jodi's apartment.
Right about here, the parking lights were on. No, I think it was far enough over so no one could get by with another vehicle. Well, they give me a lie detector test to see if I seen what I saw.
Linderman's explanation of the van helped police put together this picture. It was used by the local media.
We were unable to account who that belonged to.
Like I said, unless some kind of evidence is found or somebody comes forward, I just think it's probably one of those terrible situations that never gets solved.
So here's another curiosity too, like similar to the JonBenet Ramsey case. Is it a coincidence that there are so many good suspects? Van C's Tony Jackson, her best friend's husband, who supposedly did have a van, a white van. Is it coincidental that there are so many good suspects? It's almost as if, like, let's say Corrupt Cops did this because she maybe had a story on something. Would they have intentionally milked or brought out suspects to muddy the waters to make sure this didn't get solved? I'm just asking questions here. I'm just asking.
The days to come, we'll take a closer look at the suspects, the search, and the investigation. We'll talk with Jodi's closest friends and family members. In the final days leading up to her disappearance, Jodi was doing normal things. She went water skiing with friends, she wrote a letter to her mother, and she played in a charity golf event. We followed her exact steps from town to town and saw pretty much everything Jodi saw.
Good thinking. Way to go, Kevin.
I'm getting there slowly.
Way to keep me in check.
The Friday before she disappeared, Jodi went to work as usual between 3 and 4 a.m. She spent the morning preparing for her noon newscast on KIMT TV. She joined some friends after the show in a trip to Iowa City. Jodi loved to water ski, and friend Tammy Baker was with her that weekend.
It was on the Coralville Reservoir. We go down by the water a lot. We like the water.
Later that night, the group went out on the town.
We went to a place called Vito's, which is right down here on the pedestrian mall. We just hopped. We went from place to place to place. We both stayed together at a friend's son's house here in Iowa City. Shared a room.
Tammy says the apartment they stayed in was rented by Trenton Van Cise. His father, Mason City seed corn salesman John Van Cise.
Again, so is it curious that the last place they stayed was Van Cise's son? Van Cise, however you pronounce this goof's name.
This was also along for the weekend. John was a close friend of Jodi. The group water skied behind Van Cise's boat all weekend long, a boat with the name Jodi on the stern.
Yeah, that's not weird at all.
Saturday, more water skiing and bar hopping. When it rained Sunday morning, the group decided to return to Mason City. That day, Jodi jotted a note to her mother. Her sister Joanne explains.
It says, "Mom, look forward to seeing you this weekend. Will be fun. Went to Iowa City and did some water skiing. Saw Tammy Baker. Drove down with friends. Thinking about you all the time. Love you, Jodi."
On Monday, she attended a golf tournament at the Mason City Country Club with then news director Doug Murbach.
I saw Jodi there, and I think maybe spoke briefly, asked her what she shot, and that's the last time I saw Jodi.
Jodi went to John Van Cise's apartment around 8 o'clock that night.
So that news director, he doesn't strike me as strange. Unlike we went over her former colleagues in the previous episode, that one guy looked down like 7 times in 1 minute while being real shifty with his hands, shifty, twitchy, really weird. This guy gives away nothing, but look at Van Cise himself, looks kind of weird. Again, people have reported he has a short temper. Supposedly he got onto more than one fist fight with Billy Pruin, who was found mysteriously dead just a few months before in April, who also apparently was in the same circle of friends / acquaintances with Jodi and Van Cise. I mean, this guy kind of looks like a psycho. Again, let's not judge a book by its cover. I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue.
To view a tape of a surprise birthday party he had thrown for her weeks before.
Wow, we didn't have this piece of information. John Van Cise is the one who threw the surprise birthday party? The surprise birthday party? That might be kind of creepy for Jodi if it was unexpected, right? Some people theorize she actually started dating him and not another individual. But, yeah, we'll get to that later. If this was, let's say, unwelcome, if she thinks of him as kind of just like an acquaintance in the circle, and he is the one throwing her the birthday party, and he's that much older than this friend group, it's kind of weird. Maybe that's kind of weird. Jeff says, Van Cise, psycho, guy looking down 7 times, socio. Yeah, there might be a lot of drugs involved here.
We watched the video, and then after the video was over, we talked about a few things. Talked about my daughter who's in Italy this summer, and then we talked about water skiing this week, and then from there on, she went down the stair steps and went around the back and got in her car and went home.
That's a lot of odd specific details. This is a huge red flag. Why would you say, oh, she went out in the back, down the steps, and this, and that, and then went home? Wouldn't you just say, and then she left and went home? When people add a whole bunch of unnecessary, oddly specific details, that's a huge red flag for their making up stories. And by the way, some of Van Cise's accounts were different. Also, keep in mind, nobody even verified that she there's no independent verification of this guy's story. And furthermore, some people allege that he might have actually already been suffering from Alzheimer's at this point, and he genuinely can't remember. But I wonder, Jeff UNP says Van Cise doesn't do drugs, the rest does. So you think he doesn't get high on his own supply. But he apparently, I don't know how he has this much money being a seed salesman, but this is a huge red flag for adding all these random details.
When Jodi came home,
talk about my daughter.
Went to John Van Cise's apartment around 8 o'clock that night to view a tape of a surprise birthday party he had thrown for her weeks before.
We watched the video, and then after the video was over, we talked about a few things. Talked about my daughter who's in Italy this summer, and then we talked about water skiing this week, and then from there on, she went down the stair steps and went around the back and got in her car and went home. That's the last I seen of her.
When Jodi came home from Van Cise's, she tried to reach a friend, Kelly Torgeson, in Mississippi. Her husband, Todd, took the phone call.
Skiing this week, and then...
Also, did anybody pick up the fact that he's, like, licking his lips?
From there on, she went down this.
Not only did he add all these oddly specific details, but look at this here.
Stair steps and went around the back and got in her car and went home. That's the last I seen of her.
When Jodi came...
After he says that's the last I've seen of her, he does the whole licking the lips thing.
Went around the back and got in her car and went home. That's the last I seen of her.
So this is a sign of deception and nervousness.
Jodi came home from Van Cise
and went around the back and got in her car and went home. That's the last I seen of her.
Is that really the last he saw of her? Or did he make up that whole story, regardless of whether he was the last he had seen of her or not? Now, I was going to say, his whole Alzheimer's thing, that definitely throws a wrench into a lot. Because if he has Alzheimer's and he's innocent, there's going to be inconsistencies. And then, of course, if he's guilty and he has Alzheimer's, I mean, depending on how far gone he was, I mean, yeah, it's just tough. It's tough.
Jodi came home from Van Cise's. She tried to reach a friend, Kelly Torgeson, in Mississippi. Her husband, Todd, took the phone call. Todd said Jodi sounded happy, even giddy, speaking mainly about the weekend of water skiing with her friends. And that would be the last time the Torgesons ever heard from Jodi.
Huisentruit, as we said, is missing at this hour, and police are...
Tuesday, June 27th, Jodi is not reported for work. And in the space of a few minutes, Jodi Huisentruit disappeared. Mason City Police Department was the first agency to the scene. Almost immediately, the search began for Jodi. It was raining, but in the next few days, it was to taper off. And the search began right here on the banks of the Winnebago River.
We searched along the riverway. Up and down that, we had search teams. We were able to organize search parties.
What we're doing
at this point in time is we're working from the apartment and then we're working our way out.
Those close to Jodi were magnetically drawn to the news of the search.
I was out golfing trying to just take a little break, and they were doing a search that day with helicopters, and the helicopters were flying over the golf course. So it was just a reminder of that it's still going on. They still can't find anything. And
Just imagining what she must have felt. You know, and talking about it, it seems like it happened yesterday.
The search for Jodi quickly gained national attention. A white van spotted by resident Randy Linderman around 4 o'clock that morning became an important first clue.
Kind of caught my eyes when I seen the parking lights on, you know, so I just slowed down a bit, thought maybe it was a cop or something sitting there.
Within days, tips poured in by the hundreds. Helicopters, dogs, volunteers, all working tirelessly to find a clue.
They had a few hits, but nothing positive. Nothing that would make us believe that there was anything there.
Even months after the case, still nothing.
Growth hasn't come up yet, so if there was anything to find, it'd be easier to find now.
This case has a nagging presence on Mason City Lieutenant Ron Van de Weerd, even 9 years later.
Well, we are probably where we were step one. We're not, obviously we're not any closer to solving the crime.
Jim Feldhaus has also spent 9 years looking for Jodi.
In her case, we don't have a body. No trace of her has ever been found. Sooner or later, a lot of these finds are default finds. I mean, the Boy Scouts or hikers or hunters or something like that find the victim's body or remains.
And when human remains of any sort surface, thoughts go instantly to Jodi. It happened again this summer in Mason City.
They discovered what they thought may be some human remains on the property.
The find sparked national interest until...
Preliminary results indicate the remains belong to a Caucasian adult male.
That mystery is solved, but the search for Jodi continues.
We'll keep continuing going after it. Anytime homicides never close. So we'll keep investigating this case until it's solved.
As a journalist, following this case has been like a roller coaster. And for the families and friends that we've talked to, it's been much worse. Many people have their opinions, and there's been a ton of theories. There's been a lot of tip calls into the local agencies, and authorities have followed up many leads. Tonight we'll take a look at some of these theories and some of the opinions that people have. A beautiful woman in a very public job, in a business that tries to root out wrongdoing. The speculation about the reasons for Jodi's disappearance have included the possibility she may have been working on a story about illegal drugs in Mason City, and someone didn't like what they thought she was planning to report.
Yeah, there's probably that possibility. She was a very sharp girl, but like you said, maybe she wasn't aware of something and just found it out.
Could it have been someone she knows? That's where law enforcement almost always begins a homicide investigation.
There's some contention
South
that he
Dakota
was
private investigator Jim Feldhaus was at first hired by the Huisentruit family to investigate Jodi's disappearance. He's continued on his own for 9 years, following every lead, every theory.
From the onset, I thought she was a victim of a sexual homicide, that is a so-called serial killer. We had a very similar case here in southeastern South Dakota. And I immediately contacted Mason City PD and I said, we've got a lookalike about a year ago up here in South Dakota, and I think you have some kind of a serial killer going here.
Or was it a stalker?
I think somebody saw her on the news, became obsessed with her.
Mason City Police Lieutenant Ron Van de Weerd.
They would know what time she gets up, goes to work, how late she works, what she does in her off time, that sort of thing. That would be a very organized stalker.
Prior to her disappearance, Jodi reported being followed.
Well, the first incident was when it was broad daylight and she was followed by a black truck.
Broad daylight, and the windows were darkened, so Jodi couldn't even see who was inside. Following her, driving slow, watching.
But it gave her such an eerie feeling.
There was someone that approached her at a bar up there. He looked creepy, and she kept talking to him, and every time I would say, Jodi, let's go, he would kind of reach out and grab her again.
Jodi's concern for her own safety brought her to police, asking for information on how she could protect herself. She also wanted to enroll in a self-defense class prior to her disappearance.
She alluded to the fact that she just wasn't feeling comfortable with where her situation, getting up early in the morning and going to work by herself.
But there's a hole in the stalker theory. On the morning Jodi disappeared, she overslept. If a stalker had been studying her patterns, he would have wanted to be in place by 3:15, and that morning would have had to wait a full hour before Jodi emerged from her apartment, and in that time risk being noticed. After Jodi's disappearance, Jodi's sister received a strange note in the mail, left unsigned.
Open it up, and there were a few sentences on there. The man in the gray house north of Jodi's apartment has been stalking her. Had been stalking her. Well, lo and behold, I checked that out, and the man died.
And even 9 years later, Joanne still receives letters and tips about the case. She turns them over to the authorities. As a journalist, following this case has been like a roller coaster. And for the families and friends that we've talked to, it's been much worse. Many people have their opinions, and there's been a ton of theories. There's been a lot of tip calls into the local agencies, and authorities have followed up many leads. Tonight we'll take a look at some of these theories and some of the opinions that people have. A beautiful woman in a very public job, in a business that tries to root out wrongdoing. The speculation about the reasons for Jodi's disappearance have included the possibility she may have been working on a story about illegal drugs in Mason City, and someone didn't like what they thought she was planning to report.
Yeah, there's probably that possibility. She was a very sharp girl, but like you said, maybe she wasn't aware of something and just found it out.
Could it have been someone she knows? That's where law enforcement almost always begins a homicide investigation.
There's some contention
South
that he
Dakota
was
private investigator Jim Feldhaus was at first hired by the Huisentruit family to investigate Jodi's disappearance. He's continued on his own for 9 years, following every lead, every theory.
From the onset, I thought she was a victim of a sexual homicide, that is a so-called serial killer. We had a very similar case here in southeastern South Dakota. And I immediately contacted Mason City PD, and I said, we've got a lookalike about a year ago up here in South Dakota, and I think you have some kind of a serial killer going here.
Or was it a stalker?
I think somebody saw her on the news, became obsessed with her.
Mason City Police Lieutenant Ron Vanderweer.
They would know what time she gets up, goes to work, how late she works, what she does in her off time, that sort of thing. That would be a very organized stalker.
Prior to her disappearance, Jodi reported being followed.
Well, the first incident was when it was broad daylight and she was followed by a black truck.
Broad daylight, and the windows were darkened, so Jodi couldn't even see who was inside. Following her, driving slow, watching.
But it gave her such an eerie feeling.
There was someone that approached her at a bar up there. He looked creepy, and she kept talking to him, and every time I would say, Jodi, let's go, he would kind of reach out and grab her again.
Jodi's concern for her own safety brought her to police, asking for information on how she could protect herself. She also wanted to enroll in a self-defense class prior to her disappearance.
She alluded to the fact that she just wasn't feeling comfortable with where her situation, getting up early in the morning and going to work by herself.
But there's a hole in the stalker theory. On the morning Jodi disappeared, she overslept. If a stalker had been studying her patterns, he would have wanted to be in place by 3:15, and that morning would have had to wait a full hour before Jodi emerged from her apartment, and in that time risk being noticed. After Jodi's disappearance, Jodi's sister received a strange note in the mail, left unsigned.
Open it up, and there were a few sentences on there. The man in the gray house north of Jodi's apartment has been stalking her. Had been stalking her. Well, lo and behold, I checked that out, and the man died.
And even 9 years later, Joanne still receives letters and tips about the case. She turns them over to the authorities. As a journalist, following this case has been like a roller coaster. And for the families and friends that we've talked to, it's been much worse. Many people have their opinions, and there's been a ton of theories. There's been a lot of tip calls into the local agencies, and authorities have followed up many leads. Tonight we'll take a look at some of these theories and some of the opinions that people have. A beautiful woman in a very public job, in a business that tries to root out wrongdoing. The speculation about the reasons for Jodi's disappearance have included the possibility she may have been working on a story about illegal drugs in Mason City, and someone didn't like what they thought she was planning to report.
Yeah, there's probably that possibility. She was a very sharp girl, but like you said, maybe she wasn't aware of something and just found it out.
Could it have been someone she knows? That's where law enforcement almost always begins a homicide investigation.
There's some contention
South
that he
Dakota
was
private investigator Jim Feldhaus was at first hired by the Huisentruit family to investigate Jodi's disappearance. He's continued on his own for 9 years, following every lead, every theory.
From the onset, I thought she was a victim of a sexual homicide, that is a so-called serial killer. We had a very similar case here in southeastern South Dakota. And I immediately contacted Mason City PD and I said, we've got a look-alike about a year ago up here in South Dakota, and I think you have some kind of a serial killer going here.
Or was it a stalker?
I think somebody saw her on the news, became obsessed with her.
Mason City Police Lieutenant Ron Vanderweer.
They would know what time she gets up, goes to work, how late she works, what she does in her off time, that sort of thing. That would be a very organized stalker.
Prior to her disappearance, Jodi reported being followed.
Well, the first incident was when it was broad daylight and she was followed by a black truck.
Broad daylight, and the windows were darkened, so Jodi couldn't even see who was inside. Following her, driving slow, watching.
But it gave her such an eerie feeling.
There was someone that approached her at a bar up there. He looked creepy, and she kept talking to him, and every time I would say, Jodi, let's go, he would kind of reach out and grab her again.
Jodi's concern for her own safety brought her to police, asking for information on how she could protect herself. She also wanted to enroll in a self-defense class prior to her disappearance.
She alluded to the fact that she just wasn't feeling comfortable with where her situation, getting up early in the morning.
So, a lot to unpack there. So she's getting self-defense classes. Shame Steven Seagal didn't get a chance to train her. This could have all ended completely differently. And, yeah. The other thing, so the guy following her, I don't know if this is the rollerblader incident, so supposedly it's a black truck, not white van. So that doesn't match up. And then supposedly there's a stalker in a house nearby. He ends up dead. So was he old and he died of old age, or was this another mysterious unsolved death? Let me try to track that down.
And going to work by herself.
But there's a hole in the stalker theory. On the morning Jodi disappeared, she overslept. If a stalker had been studying her patterns, he would have wanted to be in place by 3:15, and that morning would have had to wait a full hour before Jodi emerged from her apartment, and in that time risk being noticed. After Jodi's disappearance, Jodi's sister received a strange note in the mail, left unsigned.
Open it up and there were a few sentences on there. The man in the gray house north of Jodi's apartment has been stalking her. Had been stalking her. Well, lo and behold, I checked that out, and the man died.
And even 9 years later, Joanne still receives letters and tips about the case. She turns them over to the authorities.
Okay, there's actually a lot to unpack with this letter. So, in 1999, 4 years after Jodi vanished, there was a multi-page letter to her sister. And apparently, let's see here. See if I can track down some more info on this letter. Yeah, let me keep digging into this. Yeah, there's so much here. Let me finish playing this documentary and we'll dig that. We'll try to dig more into that. There he is, obviously, here.
Thomas Gary Korskadden is a 3-time convicted sex offender. According to documents from a court hearing this summer, Korskadden traveled southern Minnesota and North Iowa looking into windows and hiring prostitutes to spend time with him in his van, which was equipped as a poor man's porn palace. Korskadden was classified as a suspect 3 months after Huisentrut's disappearance. Austin police contacted Mason City police, who along with the Minnesota Crime Lab and the FBI executed a search warrant on a light-colored van that had been owned by Korskadden. They found nothing at the time linking him to Huisentrut, but then 5 years later, during a psychological evaluation at Oak Park Heights Prison, Korskadden bragged about having been a suspect in this well-publicized case. When these details reemerged this April in a court hearing, so did police scrutiny.
Well, we had planned on interviewing Mr. Korskadden when a lot of these things came out from the civil committee.
I had another friend who had a pickup over there.
Randy Seward, an acquaintance of Korskadden, remembers a police search on his farm looking for Jodi.
They went through the bonfire pile thinking that we had burned her body.
A warrant was served on Korskadden while in custody in Austin for the hearing. That was this past August, 9 years after the crime. It would be the first time police ordered a palm print to be taken from Korskadden to compare to one left at the scene.
They were not a match with the ones that were recovered at the crime scene. We did have a talk with Mr. Korskadden. He was very cooperative, calm.
What do we know for certain about Korskadden? We know he had a yellow van, a Ford Econoline. You may recall the light-colored van cited by a witness outside Jodi's apartment the morning she was abducted.
Where I seen it sitting.
We know that the business he worked for brought him to Mason City on many occasions. A former acquaintance remembers going with him.
Pretty uneventful. We just drove down, dropped off cabinets, and drove back. The way he was talking, he went down there just about every other day.
When Huisentrut disappeared, Korskadden was living with a friend in a trailer park in Austin. He spent 6 months there.
He would come around once in a while, and he told me he was living in his van.
Public records documenting Thomas Korskadden's criminal career began at age 18. His first arrest as an adult was in Moore County for burglary and assault with a dangerous weapon. He has a history of window peeping. He also has charges of sex abuse with a minor. That's what landed him in prison in 2000. This April, Korskadden then agreed to take a lie detector test, so law enforcement could explore how much he really knew about the Huisentrut case.
We'd go to St. Peter, and we would use probably the BCA.
6 News First was the first to talk with officers after the test was given.
We did do a polygraph on Mr. Korskadden yesterday. The Minnesota BCA is the one that performed it for us.
I mean, how many downers is this guy on?
Korskadden agreed to do it. It was a voluntary thing. It's probably the last step with Mr. Korskadden. We've investigated him about as far as we can, and we're going to be moving on.
Mason City police say they're now back to where they started.
Turn over every rock we can.
So the guy has a white van, history of all these crimes, nowhere else to go. I mean, this is just weird, but what's also weird is like how many good suspects there are. Is that just seems weird. Like, how could there be that many? Still fair use, obviously.
Within the first few months, police looked closely at several people for possible connections to the abduction. Tonight we focus on one man, Tony Dewan Jackson. 21 at the time, Jackson worked in Mason City and lived near the station where Jodi worked. Jackson's current address is Oak Park Heights, a maximum security prison in Minnesota. He was arrested in February of 1998 for 4 rapes in the Twin Cities area. He's currently serving a 40-year sentence for statutory rape. It was a rap song that he had penned in the winter of 1999 that drew law enforcement attention to Jackson. In Jackson's rap, the phrase "stiffin' in Tiffin" seemed to allude to the Huisentrut case. The discovery of the song's lyrics led lawmen to farmer Doug Campbell, who directed authorities to an old silo in Tiffin, Iowa.
One day, Johnson County Deputy Mike Sheets stopped out, and he read me this rap that he came up with somewhere. As I understand it, it came from somebody who was in prison. Then he started asking questions about what place around here might fit into some of the lines in the rap. I thought a minute and I said, well, yeah, 3/4 mile north of here there's a silo on a abandoned farmstead.
Deputy Mike Sheets, the sheriff's office, and many other agencies searched an abandoned silo up the road, looking for any clues of Jodi.
I heard after the search that there was, 2 or 3 dogs, and one of them acted like she was there and the other 2 didn't.
Doug was quite amazed that 6 News first found him to get his story.
You guys are about the first ones to know that Mike was actually here, and I don't exactly know how you got a hold of me, but
did the police search turn up any clues? Nothing that would link the crime to Jackson.
Again, we investigated him, went back and went over what he was doing the day before and day of and that sort of thing, and it's to me, it's very unlikely that he's involved.
So who was? This highly visible, unsolved case shattered the innocence of an entire region.
Jeff in this chat says, maybe because there was an orchestrator and a killer or a kidnapper, perhaps a spotter. Van Sice had an alibi, but is a POI. Yeah, I don't know how solid his alibi is either.
rural Iowa has changed. I mean, it used to be one of the safest places there was. And now it kind of, we're starting to see some of the worst in people.
Still fair use, obviously. Look at all this fair use going on. Nothing but fair use all the time here with the fair use.
Mason City, Iowa. Some view it as a very innocent and wholesome part of the Midwest. And a lot of people say bad things rarely happen in the Midwest, but most cities have their issues. In this case, illegal drugs. Could the dark underworld of drugs in Mason City have played a role in the disappearance of Jodi Huisentruit? This is what we found. The problem of drugs in North Iowa and southern Minnesota isn't a new phenomenon. During the past few years, there's been an epidemic of illegal drugs, particularly in small towns where dealers felt they could operate under police radar.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Jodi Huisentruit.
We focus on the possible connection between Jodi's reporting duties and drug activity well documented in North Iowa. Did the wrong people think Jodi was doing an investigative story on drugs? And did that impression play a role in her disappearance? Some who worked closely with her doubt that scenario.
Well, you know, she was mainly the morning anchor and just at the anchor desk. Once in a while she'd go out and report, but nothing like that I remember.
Somebody claimed that she's doing a drug story on drugs.
The anchor desk. Once in a while she'd go out and report, but nothing like that I remember.
Somebody claimed that she's doing a drug story on drugs, and she got to.
Does this guy ever sleep? This guy looks like some kind of insomniac on infinite downer drugs.
Close to these people, and they had to take her out. Yeah. You know, that's another far-fetched one.
It wouldn't have been.
Interesting how he's spamming appeal to incredulity logical fallacies. How does he know it's far-fetched or not? Interesting. Is he just a dummy? Is he a stooge? Is he some kind of goofmaxer that the corrupt police, they wanted him in charge? Like, let's say he doesn't know about the corruption of the conspiracy. Did they put him in charge of this case because they knew he wouldn't solve it?
Her type of story. She would not have enjoyed it the way a lot of other people would have.
But Jodi's sister, Joanne Navy, thinks Jodi may have met people who had knowledge of illegal drug activity.
Yeah, there's probably that possibility. She was a very sharp girl, but like you said, maybe she wasn't aware of something and just found it out. And she would have approached him. She wouldn't want anything to do with anybody that is connected with drugs or, no. Mm-mm.
In the mid-1990s, North Iowa was having its share of drug activity. Much of it centered around drug dealer Dustin Honkin. He was indicted in March of 1993 on federal drug charges.
Man, this is like out of a Hollywood movie. Does this This guy looks like some kind of like mild-mannered soy maxer. This guy killed a bunch of people and is some like, you know, high-ranking drug kingpin in the area? I mean, this is wild.
He was indicted in March of 1993 on federal drug charges. That case was dismissed in March of 1995 because of the disappearance of a witness, Greg Nicholson. Nicholson and 4 other people vanished in 1993. The bodies, including those of 2 children, were discovered buried in various locations around Mason City in 2000.
Using sonar and dogs, officials have uncovered the remains of multiple bodies.
Honkin was charged in September of 2001 of the 5 killings. He was recently convicted and became the first person in Iowa to be sentenced to death in several decades. The federal drug charges against Honkin and the disappearance of 5...
He looks like such a mild-mannered nerd, doesn't he?
In Iowa
look
to
at
be
this
sentenced
goof.
to death in several decades.
Look at this goof. This goof is some kind of like criminal, is like some kind of like drug-running criminal mastermind serial killer.
The federal drug charges against Honkin and the disappearance of 5 people would have been big news in June of 1995 when Jodi was anchoring on KIMT. At the time, Honkin was working at Kraft Foods in Mason City, and there's no evidence of a connection between Honkin and Jodi Huisentruit other than her role as a reporter and how that may have been misinterpreted. We know of personal items left at the scene: Jodi's shoes, her keys, her hairdryer, hairspray, and makeup. But what about what wasn't found? According to Tammy Baker, Jodi carried a briefcase with notebooks and a purse. Those were not found in the parking lot. So why would the briefcase disappear, and what could have been written in those notebooks?
Also, other places have stated that there were computer diskettes as well. And see, why is this goof cop saying it's far-fetched? It doesn't seem far-fetched at all, given the circumstances and variables. I mean, maybe that's not what happened, but it doesn't seem far-fetched at all.
No, it makes you wonder.
Especially considering the fact that this other guy in their friend or acquaintance circle just got killed in April mysteriously.
I don't know.
The mystery thickens, and the search for Jodi continues.
Jeff in the chat says, could pass for Walter White. Wow, a young Walter White, perhaps. 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 Still fair use.
Looking for answers in the disappearance of Jodi Huisentruit requires walking on a road well traveled. Authorities investigated many theories and persons of interest. One person they looked at was considered to be one of Jodi's closest friends, John Van Sice.
We're all praying and hoping that she's okay, and we just have to keep praying and keep hoping, and I think she'll come back. I really do.
Jodi had met John Van Sice while both were living in the Key Apartments.
So that's curious that he's saying that, because supposedly the early report said he was referring to her in past tense on the day of her disappearance. But now in this interview that he's giving, I mean, I don't know how much after the disappearance it is. A year or two, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't say the date of this interview. Now he's saying he hopes she comes back? What?
1994. He was 20 years her senior. Jodi's friends say they shared mutual interests, like water skiing.
I think he really liked hanging around Jodi's friends, and Jodi, obviously.
John Van Sice claims to be the last person to see Jodi.
We tried to rebuild exactly, basically a timeline on what she was doing up until that. So we interviewed literally hundreds of...
This guy has serious, like, Christian Slater on a whole bunch of Downers vibes, right?
People.
Van Sice would be interviewed by law enforcement almost immediately. What do we know about John Van Sice? Through official documents, we know that he was born in Des Moines in 1946 and attended the Baxter school system and then married. In 1994, he was divorced. After the divorce, John moved to Mason City. His address was the Key Apartments. He and Jodi were neighbors and became good friends.
I think she was spending more time with John than she was with really anyone.
That's a curiosity. Also, so this divorce guy, is he paying alimony? And he has a child. Is he paying alimony, child support, whatever? And he has all this money left over for boats and real estate properties. Where's all this cash coming from?
Jodi had confided with family members about her relationship with Van Cise.
She did kind of imply to my mom that she thought maybe he could be getting a little interested in her. And
Jodi's sister told us she was uncomfortable while eating breakfast with Van Cise and others the day after Jodi disappeared.
And I said, didn't Jodi ever mention her dad, in visiting with you and stuff, that he had died of colon cancer? No, she never mentioned her dad to me at all. He just kind of pushed his chair back and he was real cold.
That's weird. And again, I think woman's intuition should definitely play a role here, because an average guy might not be intimidated by this, 40 to 50-year-old guy that they could easily take out. But a woman would definitely pick up on more of these subtle clues, or possibly not so subtle, of violent nature in this guy. This is very interesting.
Very unfriendly at that point.
Van Cise had thrown a surprise birthday party for Jodi earlier in the month of June of 1995, and the night before she disappeared.
Well, he literally put given. Wow.
June.
Hold on, let's look at this. Wow. A party to end all parties. So this guy's putting, not just throwing a surprise birthday party, he has actual flyers. So this guy, nearly 50 years old, is throwing a surprise birthday party for a 20-some-year-old woman. And he literally put given by John Van Cise and friends at the bottom. Like his name, as if it's, like, this is weird. This is so weird. Let me ask this question. How many women in their 20s, like, I'm sure there are some that have some random 40-plus-year-old guy in the friend group. Maybe. But how many of them are actually getting thrown surprise parties by this older guy? I don't know. Is that weird? Because, if a few of the friends kind of got together and threw it together, chip in, but this guy's leading the charge, that's a little weird. And his boat is named after him.
And the night before she disappeared, Jodi went to his house to view a videotape of the event. To this day, Jodi's sister Joanne still has questions for Van Cise.
I'd say, John, exactly how did you feel toward Jodi? Was she just a friend, as you've kind of claimed in all the interviews? But I've heard otherwise, that you really wanted more of a relationship with her. I really want the truth.
I feel so bad for her. This is hard to watch.
John had strong feelings for Jodi.
This guy's weird for sure. This guy's got some like Woody Harrelson crazy vibes.
Jodi.
I even named my boat after her because just because she's Jodi.
What? Does that sound normal in his head?
And she's been such a big part of my life here lately, and she just makes me feel so good.
But
I don't know, man. This is weird.
Friend Tammy Baker remembers Jodi explaining it wasn't a serious relationship.
I did ask her at one point if they were involved, and she said absolutely not.
Wow, she didn't say no. She said absolutely not. If that's true, if this friend is not embellishing, she said absolutely not. How would he feel about that?
6 News First Investigates has tried repeatedly to contact Van Cise for comment on this case, only to get a telephone recording from his home in Arizona.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
John Van Cise
is not available.
Authorities haven't heard from John Van Cise in years, and since the disappearance, Van Cise has repeatedly denied having anything to do with it. With the years passing by and John Van Cise moving on with his life, authorities are left wondering.
I'm hopeful that whoever did this will either get caught or come forward,
This doesn't inspire a lot of confidence from the lead investigator. I hope they get caught or come forward. Hope? All you have is hope? Why don't you do your actual job and investigate something? Wow, nothing but hope and a prayer here does not inspire confidence in Mason City's finest. Wow.
Maybe they have a conscience.
Maybe they have a conscience. That's what this guy has been reduced to? Wow. Jeff UNP says regarding Van Cise,
do with it.
This guy's a psycho and a sexual predator. His eyes are still aroused when he talks about her. Yeah, this is weird. This is weird. I feel so bad for Jodi's family, though. And having to deal with this nincompoop.
Hopeful that whoever did this will either get caught.
He's hopeful they'll get caught, come forward, or maybe they have a conscience. That's all he's got at this point in the investigation. This does not inspire confidence in any capacity. The Popo have failed. The Popo have failed. Still fair use on this.
Jodi Huisentruit has a personality as vibrant as the bright colors she wore on camera.
Oh, Jodi's the type of gal that just everybody took to right away.
She had a way of making her friends feel very special.
I mean, she just had the most beautiful personality. When she walked into a room, she really did, you know, she lit it up.
I mean, who can't feel bad for her family? I mean, this poor woman has to deal with all the scum and the incompetence. I mean, it's just crazy.
But Jodi's older sister, Joanne Nathy, is the first to admit that Jodi was, however, naive. She says Jodi always found a way to see the good in people, never saying anything negative about family or friends.
Deserves that. She was a good kid. She did everything right. She probably was just too nice, too trusting.
I mean, this woman seems like the most honest woman I've ever seen in my life. I mean, there's absolutely no deception. No, I mean, how can you, it's hard to watch here.
Anything. I'm always asking Jodi what happened, you know. Jodi, can't you tell us?
Jodi's family was deeply involved in the search, and in the months following her disappearance, a memorial service seemed premature.
And it bothered me because I thought we shouldn't be doing this, you know.
In May of 2001, Jodi was declared legally dead. The book was closed on the life of a television news anchor, but many pages remain missing. 9 years later, with no trace of Jodi ever found, the lack of certainty still haunts Jodi's older sister.
I just wish we could find the missing ingredient that, or what do I want to say? Jodi will always be a part of us, and we're always going to miss her and everything, but at least we would know. We could get the case solved and have justice served.
I mean, think about what kind of scum out there would intentionally prevent this case from being solved, either involved in law enforcement or otherwise. Like, and a lot of these scum have actually looked this woman in the eye. The police, the mayor, the police chief, who, again, this state represent, Ku Iker, the state rep is saying that the police chief and the mayor were stonewalling this case, not even investigating leads. Like, how do these scum look this woman in the eyes? I don't know.
Today, Joanne clings to what little she has left of Jodi's belongings. Eventually, Jodi's red Mazda Miata was sold. Her personal belongings were kept at her mother's house, but after a house fire in 2000, many of those items were destroyed.
What? A house fire? This family can't catch a break. Was that house fire coincidental or not? This is one of the weirdest cases I've ever seen.
The job of cleaning out Jodi's apartment and storing her red Miata was a tedious task. Going through the motions kept the family going.
You're just frozen, like I said. You become a robot. I mean, you're just, everything is just sucked out of you when you go through something like this.
In the meantime, Jodi's family and friends go on with their lives with the belief that their questions will eventually be answered and justice will be served.
Because, you know, you miss her so much. She was our sunshine. She brightened up every event.
So there he is here.
Tammy Baker, one of Jodi's best friends, lives in Iowa City and manages a pet supply store near the university. She met Jodi when they were working in Iowa City. The two became very close friends.
A great friend. And when I say great friend, I'm saying that she takes care of her friends. She took care of her friends. Sometimes they still talk about her in the present tense.
I mean, I haven't picked up any lying from this woman, although she appears to either like her drugs or have liked her drugs in the past.
She had saw Jodi for the last time the weekend before she disappeared. They had been water skiing and going out on the town.
That made it all the worse when everything happened on Tuesday, because you never see those things coming, and all of a sudden this person that has this great approach to life and is so much fun and is so much part of your daily life is just, it's gone.
On Tuesday morning, Tammy heard the news from friends.
Yelled and screamed and cried. Called her number. That was it.
Naive, outgoing, friendly, maybe to a fault. This is the way many people describe Jodi Huisentruit.
She was very warm, a little bit naive sometimes. Just a very welcoming, kind person.
It's been over 9 years, but Tammy has made her peace with Jodi's disappearance several years ago.
I would wake up all night crying. And then one night in a dream she came to me and said, she hugged me and she said, I'm fine, I'm happy. Please don't hate the man who did this. And she said, I love you.
Okay, I don't know what to make of this. For those, if we're going to explore some of these paranormal explanations, please don't hate the man. One perpetrator? One perp? Now, did she mean that generally? Like, don't have hate in your heart? Or did she mean it specifically like this specific man? Which leads me to believe, wow, I wonder, again, not claiming this is true in any way, if Jodi is communicating from beyond the grave, is it possible Van Cise, if he has Alzheimer's, or possibly some kind of psychosis, maybe he didn't mean to kill her, and that's what she's getting at with that? I don't know. That's it's a pretty weird dream, but yeah, I've looked at a few cases where the dreams were actually quite chilling, and they revealed some details that could not have been known to family members. Perhaps I should do a podcast on that.
And that was it. I really felt that that was her that had come to me, and after that I didn't worry about her.
When the end of the story comes, how are you going to handle it?
If it comes, relief that there could be closure, more for the family, because I've had closure. The thing that really haunts me is that this person is still out there. And at least have some kindness and let the family know what happened, or do it in such a way maybe that they're never tracked down, if they obviously need to protect themselves, but at least.
This is all really weird phrasing. Obviously, they need to protect themselves. Why would she even give a crap about that? Like, the phrasing of that. I mean, obviously, like, they don't want to get caught, but the phrasing of protect themselves? That's not... I don't know. Who would use that type of phrasing? Some would suggest that means she knows who did it and is possibly protecting them. But wouldn't you say just do it anonymously, right? Like, why would you emphasize they need to protect themselves? That's almost like you're associating or sympathizing with them in some capacity to use the word protect. Like, without giving themselves away, you could say it like that. But the word protect is a very curious word to use.
Communicate with somebody and let them know what happened. That's what I would like to see.
Again, I'm just spitballing, but would she phrase it like that if perhaps she knew who did it but not exactly the circumstance, as if maybe she's still thinking it might have been accidental.
There have been no substantial leads in the case, and no trace of Jodi has ever been found.
Jeff says she's talking about Van Cise. Rap star is already doing live. Critter Mama says, I'm not sure what to think about her statements or her dream. Yeah, it's weird, and some of the word choice, seemingly somebody would not use that word choice unless they were somehow associating or sympathizing with the killer. Why would you be doing that?
Friends and family hope for an end to the painful ordeal. As for Tammy Baker,
I had closure when Jodi visited me in my dream.
She's kind of shaking her head no while she's saying that. And again, if she is drugged up, anti-anxiety meds, whatever, suppose this was one of her best friends, so. It almost sounds like she's trying to convince herself she had closure when she didn't, but. It's also possible, let's say, for example, she's the one that introduced Jodi to drugs. There could be some guilt there, and that's causing, you know, some of these issues, even if she had nothing to do with what happened to her and doesn't know what happened to her. Potential similar issues with the people at her news studio. Critter Mama says, this doesn't sound like an accident. Is she on medication? Look, I don't know. Maybe. All right, let's continue. We got a few more segments here. Fair use still, obviously.
former KIMT TV morning producer Amy Coons worked very closely with Jodi Huisentruit.
As you can imagine, it's been another difficult day here at KIMT.
Coons remembers the morning Jodi disappeared and has explained it dozens of times over the years.
It was just a regular routine phone call. I called her at 10 after 4. I said, Jodi, are you awake? You coming into work? She goes, what time is it? You know, the typical questions. What time?
Her boss, then news director Doug Murbach, last saw Jodi the afternoon before she disappeared.
And we both took off early, played in the golf event, saw Jodi there, and I think maybe spoke briefly, asked her what she shot, and that's the last time I saw Jodi.
It was only after she disappeared that Murbach learned of Jodi's own concerns for her personal safety. One instance where a pickup truck was following her brought Jodi to police.
She said somebody had drove by and stared at her awful hard, and it made her nervous.
I guess I heard that after the fact. As far as any kind of personal concerns with her personal safety, she never brought it up to me as her supervisor.
According to Murbach, there were times when Jodi was late for work. No one became concerned. That is why the police were not called until 7:12 a.m., 3 hours and 12 minutes overdue.
I guess I heard afterwards as her supervisor that nobody told me that, yes, it did happen on occasion. And I think people just didn't want her to be in a situation where I would have had to call her in my office and talk to her about that. So I heard after the fact that, yes, on occasion she did not show up at 3 a.m. as she was supposed to for her job description.
What happened that morning? With several persons of interest, thousands of leads, and differentiating theories, Amy Coons follows her gut reaction and remains cautious.
I still have the same theory that I had way back then, but I can't really say because that person has never been listed as an official suspect. And I'm actually kind of afraid to say what I think. I've voiced that to the police, knowing a few things that I know. But I'm almost afraid to say that to all of the media for fear for my life, just in case I'm right and I'm onto something.
Doug Murbach remains unsure.
Like I said, unless some kind of evidence is found or somebody comes forward, I just think it's probably one of those terrible situations that never gets solved.
Today, Amy Coons has moved on to another anchor job in a different station. Doug Murbach has since gotten out of the business, and Jodi's name is still brought up from time to time.
I guess the thing I hear most is they can't believe it's been 9 years. It's been that long.
And coping isn't easy.
So after a while, you just kind of put it in the back of your mind and put it in a drawer and shut the drawer, and you only open that drawer if you absolutely have to.
A drawer full of sorrow and sadness tinged with fond memories and visions of a happy, smiling face.
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of this. Let's review this real quick.
Call her in my office and talk a bit.
Differentiating theories.
I still have the same theory that I had way back then, but I can't really say because that person has never been listed as an official suspect.
I wonder, is she talking about Honkin, who she'd be afraid of because this guy's like a crazy drug kingpin serial killer? But he's locked up at this point. Would she be thinking about Van Cise? Hasn't he moved to Arizona at this point? So why would she be scared of Van Cise? So it seems more likely she might be scared of... It seems more likely... She would be scared of corrupt police, right? Because that definitely she wouldn't want to say. I would think. Because Van Cise is in Arizona. Hawkins locked up. Jackson's locked up. It seems like corrupt cops would definitely be something you wouldn't want to say, right? Drug running, corrupt cops.
3 a.m. as she was supposed to for her job description.
What happened that morning? With several persons of interest, thousands of leads, and differentiating theories, Amy Coons follows her gut reaction and remains cautious.
I still have the same theory that I had way back then.
And so Amy Coons, this is the one, she's got the weird theory, you know, she's the one who didn't call the cops because she thought Jodi might have split her hood open in the shower, and that's why she didn't call, but whatever. Or she went back to sleep. She also said there's more than one party responsible, but this is the most telling interview she's ever given, and she doesn't appear to be deceptive in this particular... She's still got the weird smile.
But I can't really...
Yeah, she's still got a little bit of that Duper's Delight smile, doesn't she? If she's that terrified, why is she smiling?
Say because that person has never been listed as an official suspect.
And jokingly making quotes about official suspect while being scared? I mean, this is crazy.
And I'm actually kind of afraid to say what I think. I've voiced that to the police, knowing a few things that I know.
So she's claiming here now to have insider knowledge, knowing the things that I know? This is weird. This is weird, man. This is weird. Jeff UNP says they all have a smirk like this case is an inside joke. Yeah, her coworkers definitely do. It's weird. Now, the boss is the least telling. We'll get to him in a second. But this is weird. Now Amy's claiming to have inside knowledge and afraid to go to the police while having some kind of weird smile and making quotations like a joke.
But I'm almost afraid to say that to all of the media.
Why would you be smiling about that? Why would you be smiling about how scared you are to say all that?
For fear.
Oh, look at that fear. For fear. Yeah, show this image to people. This is a woman in fear, right?
For my life.
Look how, that's the happiest I have ever seen anybody talking about being in fear for their life. Has anybody seen an individual ever this happy describing how much in fear for their life they are? This is weird. This is weird. So I would think... So either she's talking about the police... Like, again, maybe she's on that much drugs that she's always smiling about everything. Because we don't have a baseline, do we? If she's just this crazy cokehead who's always smiling and laughing about everything, even the most serious subjects, then this might not be a deviation from the baseline. We haven't considered that. If she has a smiling baseline, talking about tragedies, talking about her own family members dying, if she's this coked up all the time, and this is her baseline, then perhaps she is telling the truth. If she's telling the truth here, I suppose she could be talking... Either the police chief or Frank Stearns and that billboard. Would it be crazy if Amy Coon's here? What if she really was the good guy the whole time? She's just this coked up good person. She's the one that vandalized the billboard that said it's Frank Kearns and the machine shop because of the insider knowledge. Yeah, if she's just this crazy cokehead with this super happy baseline, even the most tragic subjects, then perhaps we can take what she's saying at face value.
You know, just in case I'm right and I'm onto something.
Or is she just that much of a narcissist? She thinks she's going to solve this case and she thinks she's on to something and she's right and she's smiling about it and how proud she's going to be that she solved the case. Like, maybe she doesn't give an iota of a crap about Jodi, but she wants to solve the case? Jeff UNP says, I thought for a second she was flirting. Critter Mama says she's an attention hound. Yeah, maybe all of this smiling and all this crap, it has nothing to do with her being responsible for anything Jodi. Maybe she doesn't give a crap about Jodi, but maybe she's still telling the truth about everything. Critter Mama says, I'm getting bad vibes from this chick again. Yeah, vibes are weird. But I suppose it's possible, if she's a sociopathic narcissist, she might not have harmed Jodi at all, but she might genuinely be excited and happy that she can get this case solved. And if she's that coked up, perhaps she wouldn't be regarding her own life that much, right? I don't know. But if it's the po-po... Because why would she be afraid of these guys that are locked up or Van Cise in Arizona? So I would guess her theory, what other theories are there? And presumably she wouldn't still be working at the station at this time.
Doug Murbach remains unsure.
Yet this guy, I'm not getting any outright deception, but he appears to not care about her at all. That's true.
Like I said, unless some kind of evidence is found or somebody comes forward, I just think it's probably one of those terrible situations that never gets solved.
Why would you say that? Yeah, I think this is never getting solved. I mean, that's just weird. Like, again, the phrasing, right? Like, you could say, you know, the statistics aren't good. I mean, I hope it gets solved. You know, I'm praying for the family. Like, he doesn't even talk about the family. Like, like whoever said in the chat, no empathy whatsoever. Who would phrase something like that? But I'm not picking up any kind of deception, though.
Today, Amy Coons has moved on to another anchor job in a different station. Doug Murbach has since gotten out of the business, and Jodi's name is still brought up from time to time.
I guess the thing I hear most is they can't believe it's been 9 years. It's been that long.
And coping isn't easy.
So after a while, you just kind of put it in the back of your mind and put it in a drawer and shut the drawer, and you know, you only open that drawer if you absolutely have to.
I mean, is he not even considering, like, that the family is listening to this? Like, this guy, I mean, how is this guy the boss? I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? Like, if you're some kind of sociopath with no empathy, you'll step on whoever you need to get to the top, right? He doesn't necessarily strike me as a narcissist, though. Like, he's not... I mean, I don't know, maybe he is, there's all types, but he just seems like, yeah, he doesn't give a crap about people. Maybe he only cares about money. He's not even in the business anymore, but on the other hand, he took time out of his schedule to do this interview. So perhaps, I mean, I don't know what to make of this. Jeff UNP says, Amy Coons doesn't come across deceptive, more like genuine happy. What's her name? Amy Coons. K-U-N-S, I believe, or K-U-H-N-S, something like that. So, yeah, this is weird. Her coworkers are all weird, deceptive or not. They're weird.
A drawer full of sorrow and sadness.
Now, is he checking the camera lens to see if he's believed or not? I'm not sure. It might just be genuine awkwardness, but he's not looking down in shame. He's not fidgeting.
Fond memories and visions.
It's almost like he barely knew her and he didn't even care to know her, right? Like, he didn't even know that she came in late a bunch of times. Like, it seems like he just had no clue about anything that had anything to do with her. But he still took time out of his day to do the interview. I mean, I really don't know what to make of that guy. I just don't know.
Happy, smiling.
Because someone that detached and uncaring, you would think they wouldn't have even bothered with an interview, right? And he had nothing to offer. Like, he had absolutely nothing of value to offer.
Face.
Other than saying he doesn't think it's going to get solved like crazy. And then he doesn't think about it often, if he can help it. I think there's might be one or, is there one more section here? Oh, there's two more. There he is.
Deep in the center of the Mason City Police Department sits a room containing volumes upon volumes of information that truly makes up the Huisentruit file. Information collected from various investigators over the years.
There's some contention that
But near Sioux Falls, South Dakota, private investigator Jim Feldhaus has collected his own information on the case, among others.
There's probably about 10 major cases that I'm working on at one time.
I mean, look how caring of a guy this guy is. He's just trying to help everybody. Like stark contrast. I mean, this guy's elderly. He could be just retired. He's giving his whole life to try to help try to solve these cases and bring justice and closure to families. Like, what a contrast. What a contrast.
But Jodi is probably the predominant case. I've worked on it for 9 years.
Feldhaus holds degrees in chemistry and computer science with a very unique background.
My background is in collections. I don't mean collecting stamps or bad debts. I mean collecting information.
And with a voice sounding like a chain being pulled from the back of a pickup truck, Feldhaus remains confident about his ability to gather information.
And then once I find something that's pretty interesting, I'll start in on the phone. Apparently I have a reasonably good phone technique because I very seldom get turned down.
His tactic, simple.
We simply clear one possible suspect after another until we're left with a suspect that we can't clear.
After a possible assault in the parking lot the morning Jodi disappeared, what could have happened?
Now from there on in, it's pretty much conjecture. Who did this or why did they do it? What's their motive? She didn't really have any enemies. I mean, she got along with people. She had a great number of friends. She wasn't involved, as been brought up several times, she wasn't involved in any investigative reporting and investigating some group or individual that was breaking the law. She wasn't trained to do that. She wasn't interested in that.
But that doesn't mean that people didn't give her information about it. Specifically, if people didn't know that she didn't do that. Because if she just announced herself, oh, like I'm a news anchor, a news reporter, or whatever. If someone didn't exactly, I mean, that's such a general term. Somebody could have still slipped her info, right? Because they can't be expected to know the exact department she was in. Or they might have a general idea. Well, news anchors are interested in the news, right? So you can give them any kind of news. So I wouldn't disqualify information being given to her simply because that wasn't her focus.
Still, the possibility of Jodi being at the wrong place at the wrong time or among the wrong people is considered.
And, I mean, it's like staying in a burning plane too long before you parachute. Pretty soon you're too close to the ground, the damn chute won't open, you know? And she just stayed into it too long.
Did Jodi stay too long? Did she overhear things that may have put her life in danger? Many people believe her abductor was someone she knew and perhaps trusted. Although Feldhaus has his suspicions, at this point we're not free to report that because no one has been charged in the case.
I mean, in life, you know, there's such a thing as knowing things but not being able to prove it. Most of us know of the existence of a God or a higher power or whatever, but it would be very difficult to prove it. And there are criminal cases like that too.
This seems to be one of those cases where nothing is certain and little can be proven. But Feldhaus is sure of one thing.
The world is essentially out to get the people that do things like this. Whoever did this, he has no friends.
And Jim Feldhaus will continue on until the case is closed.
So, just looking for a general statement here. Unfortunately, he has since passed, but so Feldhaus supposedly believed that it was a random sex crime committed by local criminals, not an inside job or crime by a close acquaintance. Now, he looked into many different theories, including multiple perps, because a neighbor noticed 2 distinct male voices. And he shared his findings and all of his information that the state rep, Kuiker, claimed were not even looked at. And Feldhaus, early on, he may have thought there was a crime in South Dakota that had the same MO. We'll get into more of that later. So one more segment here. Fair use, obviously.
The last time Jodi's sister Joanne was in this parking lot was a year and a half ago.
Oh yeah, they had the dogs all the way around.
This is the first time she's met with Lieutenant Vanderweerd at the scene. It's hard for her to return.
I mean, Vanderweer looks weird. He doesn't look very capable. He looks like he has permanent insomnia. He looks like he's on a ton of downers. I mean, I just feel bad for this poor woman having to trust the justice of this case to this poor guy. He just doesn't seem to have the competence.
Whenever I come here, I just get this strange feeling, sick to my stomach almost, because to think, I can just picture coming.
How old is he even? He looks like a kid.
Down those steps, all eager to get to work and coming out here and then experiencing that. The horror of it, is just too much.
The terror on the morning of June 27th, 1995 is reflected in the determination of Lieutenant Vanderweerd.
I think the odds of a random act of a serial killer.
I mean, does this guy strike anybody as capable in any sense of the word? Like physically capable, mentally capable, emotionally capable of solving this? Like, what is this guy's record? Like, how many cases has this guy solved? Let me look that up. Let me see if I can find that. And closed or solved cases doesn't mean solved correctly either, obviously. Quite a lot of, yeah, so apparently there are no, hold on. What the heck? He's not even, I can't even find him in the directory. Oh, it's not Vanderweer. It's actually Vanderweerd. There's a D there. His name is Ron Vanderweerd. With the D. It's literally with a D. So he retired August 2020, 32 years of service. Let's see here. So he actually was not the lead detective. That was Stearns. So he's not the lead here, but he's one of the main investigators. Vanderweerd. What a perfect name. So apparently... So who wants to guess? So he's been in charge. So he spearheaded a command for the city's stubborn cold cases. So, 4 of the primary cases: John Snyder Jr., 1994, infant death; Dylan Luna, 92, infant arson death; Elgin Strait, 77, homicide; and Andy Hatgis, unsolved homicide. And then, of course, there's the Jodi Huisentruit case. What do you think his track record is? Then there's also the Gerald Best case. So there's 4, 5, 6 cold cases he's involved with. How many of these 6 do people think he solved so far in 32 years? What is everybody's guess here? What is everybody's guess? Critter Mama says, with missing files from the crime scene, I would think someone at least thought she knew something. Yeah. Yeah, even if she didn't. Anybody have any guesses? Anybody have any guesses? How many cases has this guy been involved in solving? How many cold cases? So he was involved with John Snyder Jr., Dylan Luna, Elgin Strait, Andy Gates, Jodi Huisentruit, and also Gerald Best. Murder of 50-year-old Gerald Best. Stabbed with his throat slashed in December 30th, 1999 in Mason City. Some people believe that there is a link to the Jodi Huisentruit case, including that there's a police officer involved, possibly Stearns. But how many cold cases? Jeff UNP says 0 solved. Correct. Out of all of the high-profile cold cases, I mean, I'm not laughing because this is good. I'm laughing because I'm not surprised that a guy with his demeanor, Jeff UNP says -1. Well, that would mean he solved one on the books that turned out to be wrong. But no, he didn't even go into the negatives. Going to the negatives might actually, I don't know if it's better or worse. I mean, at least you did some kind of work, even if it turned out wrong. But yep, he's batting a perfect 0. He's batting a perfect 0. Perfect 0 in cold cases that I could find. Let me just double check one more time. Okay, so apparently he was a full-time detective and command staff lieutenant. And it says here he closed day-to-day crimes like assaults, robberies, thefts, and drug offenses. So he did apparently arrest random kids for having some plants. But yes, for some reason he was appointed to the Special Cold Case Initiative, and it looks like he hasn't solved a single case in the Special Cold Case Initiative. Wow. That is not a good record. I feel bad for the families that have to deal with this guy. Wow, sad. Sad, sad, sad.
Stalker just happened to drive by. There wouldn't have been time for him.
Screams from Jodi went unreported.
She screamed, and nobody did anything with the screams. Some people heard them, but...
What happened to Jodi after that remains a mystery. Leads continue to come in as the result of our month-long series, and police continue to pursue them. After one of our stories aired, we received information.
Also, Stearns, the other lieutenant who people believe could be responsible for her death, he was the lead in the Jodi Huisentruit case. He was also heavily involved in the Dylan Luna case, some of these other cases, and zero cold cases solved. Cold homicides for Frank Stearns. So both of these main investigators on the Jodi Huisentruit case have track records of zero cold cases. Why are they working cold cases? Unless that's intentional. Is this some kind of Homer Simpson type situation?
About the crawl space beneath Jodi's apartment building. Someone reported a suspicious depression in the ground there. 6 News First accompanied Mason City officers on the search.
Well, it's collapsed for some reason now.
Yeah, build up on their forms. You're going to want to build up the dirt.
The water would pack it down, but
this is over years.
yeah, that's true.
We haven't actually considered that. Is it possible somebody at this apartment complex harmed her that had their eye on her and they brought her back into the apartments? We never even thought about that. I wonder. Because that would still explain the screams and all that and the 2 male voices, but then the car screeching off doesn't quite explain that, though, if that was accurate.
Police concluded the depression was a result of construction of the complex in 1977, not ground that had been dug up since then. A glimmer of hope, examined and disregarded.
So that's just an example that when something comes up there, we check into everything.
This day, another lead.
Comes up there.
What do people think this guy's IQ is? I mean, just look at this guy. If you saw a photo of this guy, would you think, oh, this is a successful police detective who solved many cases? I mean, this guy looks like some kind of stoned college kid who doesn't know what day it is.
And disregarded.
So that's just an example that when it comes up there, we check into everything.
This day, another lead, another dead end. But our investigation, at the very least, brought renewed interest in a cold case.
Well, it has generated some new leads as far as people have been calling in. I think it's refreshed their memory.
Jodi's sister, Joanne Navy, hopes it will prompt someone to come forward.
And somebody knows something out there, and they're just not coming forward.
I mean, she seems sharper than the police. If you give her investigative powers, she probably would have solved this.
They're hesitant, and they can do it so easily without, giving their names even if they...
Both are haunted by the fact that someone has been living with a secret more than 9 years.
I can only speak for myself, and I know I don't think I could live with myself. Something like that. And it's, I guess I'm hopeful that is happening to this person, that it's eating them up.
Yeah, I'm actually not getting any dishonest vibes from this guy. I think they just got this single-digit IQ guy. They put him in cold cases on purpose because they put him in charge. This isn't just he wasn't in charge of the Jodi case, but he was in charge of their cold case unit. Like, he wasn't in charge of the Jodi case originally. That was Stearns. Then they put him in charge of the cold case unit, almost as if by design, right? Like, let's give Homer Simpson this job to make sure it doesn't get done. I mean, I don't see any signs of deception. I also don't see too many signs of life.
I hope it is.
A secret with the power to write the final chapter to this mystery and end almost a decade of searching.
It's been too long. We need peace. Jodi needs peace. Let's get it solved.
There's actually one more... Oh, no, that was the last segment of this documentary. Now here's a full interview with Jim Fieldhouse, so let's dissect this. This will be the last piece we go over today, but there is plenty more to come.
Just tell me your name and then spell it so that we make sure we've got it right.
Sure. Okay, my name is Jim Feldhaus. Jim is common spelling. Feldhaus is spelled F-E-L-D-H-A-U-S. What day is today? Tuesday, the 8th of June, isn't it?
Yep.
Huh?
Yep. Jim, you spent a lot of time looking at the Jodi Huisentruit case, and can you tell us briefly how you got started in this and what your progress has been so far?
Well, the way I got started is about a year before Jodi disappeared or was abducted. We had a very similar case here in southeastern South Dakota, and I think I found out that Jodi had been abducted on the evening of the 27th, Tuesday the 27th of 1995, from local media, the TV. And I immediately contacted Mason City PD, and I said, we've got a look-alike about a year ago up here in South Dakota, and I think you have some kind of a serial killer going here. As it turned out, that wasn't true. The cases this happens quite common. The case will seem very similar, and you think, that's worth checking out. But we know the individual that was responsible for 2 female homicides here in South Dakota never went next or near Mason City, or so far as I know, into the state of Iowa in his life. For about 3 years, we thought we really had something going with this guy. But anyway, I did marginal, myself and another guy did some marginal work on the South Dakota case. I don't know, I just started working on it more and more. I mean, Jodi is not the only case I work on, as you can see from my computer files. There's probably about 10 major cases that I'm working on at one time, but Jodi is probably the predominant case I've worked on it for 9 years, and as you guys saw, I've accumulated about 37.6 megs of information. Mostly what I've done is what's usually done. I mean, in a case like this, we simply clear one possible suspect after another until we're left with a suspect that we can't clear. And I won't use any names here, but it seems, go ahead and answer it.
Be the pilot.
Hey, can I call you back? Okay, anything big? Okay, see you later, bye.
What, pilot?
One of the guys from the station, no.
Oh.
Jeez. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Commercial airliner just bodies all over. That camera isn't running, is it?
It is, but that doesn't matter.
So anyway, you've accumulated a lot of information on Jodi, and
yeah, I accumulated a lot of information on Jodi and her lifestyle, and she was really a very good kid, kind of an all-American girl, really. And she certainly didn't deserve anything like this. But as I mentioned before, I mean, we've got one individual we can't seem to clear. And things have happened now here several years ago that make me believe even more so that he's involved. Whether he is or not, I don't know. There's certainly not any ground to arrest him or anything like that, but there are a lot of pointers towards this.
Based on the information that you've gathered from various sources, what do you think happened that night to Jodi?
I'm not quite sure. I think she had overslept. Annie Cruz, I'm going to get this name wrong, guys.
Amy Coons?
Amy Coons called her at about 4. That means she had to enter the parking lot about 4:30, maybe 4:45. As she was going to the car, she was attacked from behind. A scream was heard. Apparently she was struck and dragged unconscious or dead to the assailant's waiting vehicle. Now from there on in, it's pretty much conjecture. Who did this, or why did they do it? What's their motive? She didn't really have any enemies. I mean, she got along with people. She had a great number of friends. She wasn't involved, as been brought up several times, she wasn't involved in any investigative reporting and investigating some group or individual that was breaking the law. She wasn't trained to do that. She wasn't interested in that. From the onset, I thought she was a victim of a sexual homicide, that is a so-called serial killer. Any attractive, and they're all attractive, female anchor woman is probably working in a high vulnerability job, because some of these guys are real head cases and they're watching her and they come up with all kinds of things. And besides Jodi, 2 other anchor reporters have been killed in this country in the last 9 years. So from the onset, that was pretty much my thought. Now, I'm not quite sure about that anymore. Getting back to clearing suspects, I mean, I think this Donald Blum, or what, Blum is his name? The guy that murdered Katie Poirier, he's doing life. Well, they got him out of Minnesota because they would have killed him in Oak Park Heights. He was cleared. Captain Mike Halverson actually went and he worked on that, and he found out the night that Jodi was abducted, Donald Blum was in Fairview Hospital. It's across the river there in Minneapolis, with some sort of asthma attack or something. So we can account for his time 100%. And that's a good example of clearing somebody. Certainly Donald Blum had the mentality for doing these terrible things, but in this case he didn't. And usually we're able to clear people that well. As I say, this individual I keep coming back to, and in my mind, yes, he passed a polygraph, but if you have a sociopathic personality, that's no. Some people can pass them anyway. That doesn't mean all that much. But he's never really accounted for his time. Of course, he lived alone. He didn't have a wife. He wasn't, you know, and many of us would be in the same position. But he's never really been cleared.
Jim, can you describe her apartment that morning? What they found in her apartment?
Well, there was no sign of forced entry. There was no sign of a struggle or a fight or anything like that. The apartment was in good order. Her bed hadn't been, it had obviously been slept in, she slept in it. But the bed covers had simply been pulled up. It hadn't been neatly made like you'd find in a hotel or a motel. I guess there are two things in the apartment. I've been told that these things are true, and I'm not quite certain that they are factual. But the toilet seat was up, which indicates that the last person to use the commode, the toilet, was a male. And of course, when, like any of us, when they get up, most people get up in the morning, they use the toilet. I mean, you know. And the other thing is this sink situation. I mean, Jodi collected aluminum cans, as many of us do, and she drank Lowenbrau beer, which is a Minnesota little. Do they still sell it around there? Do you think? Yeah. So, aluminum cans. I mean, aluminum colored cans. And this other individual that was quite interested in her personally, so to speak, drank. He only would buy 16-ounce cans of Budweiser Light. So there were 3 or 4 cans of, Jodi would upend cans in the sink to let the beer drain out before she squashed them down to sell for aluminum.
Jeff says this Fieldhouse guy can explain the case better than Vanderweerd. Well, I think anybody could explain it better than Vanderweerd. But yeah, this guy's probably done the most actual research into the most different avenues in this case. Until now, anyway.
And there were 3 or 4 cans of Landekugels and 3 or 4 cans of these 16-ounce Budweisers. And now, that tells me, I mean, between the toilet seat, that the man had been in the apartment. Although if he'd come by, let's say she got home about 9 o'clock that evening, let's say he came by about 9:30, when she got up in the morning, she would have used the toilet. But you see what I'm talking about? And that speaks of the guy being on, she wouldn't let him stay there all night. She didn't like this guy. She was afraid of him.
Is there a possibility that after Jodi was abducted, put into a van or whatever, that this guy could have gone back into her apartment?
Well, this guy or somebody else might have gone back. Now, the important thing we see here in this abduction is, of course, Jodi is missing, but she also had a small kind of, what do they call it? It's an artistic term. I'll find it for you. Leather, I want to say attaché case, but that's not really what it is. And she had 2 notebooks in there. And I know from some of her friends that she kept the name and phone numbers of her many friends and associates in there, and some of these were professional phone numbers. I mean, she was looking for, like a lot of people in the industry, she had interviewed KDLT in Sioux Falls. She had interviewed, I think, KSTP or CARE, K-A-R-E up in Minneapolis. So some of these were business numbers too. And she had friends all over the Midwest. And And that briefcase disappeared when she did. So why would a sexual predator be interested in somebody's personal notebook? And why the fact that the toilet lid was up, I don't know about the beer cans, indicates to me that some guy went back into her apartment. Perhaps this was a team, two people, one to do the abduction, one to do the search the apartment, went back into the apartment looking for something, and I don't know what that would be.
That's an interesting theory. I did not lean there. I'm thinking somebody stayed over from the night before. That's what I'm thinking. And then possibly they even left. Let's say if Van Cise or Van Cease or whatever, if he's stalking her and he's watching the place early in the parking lot, he sees a man leaving, would he get pissed off? I don't know. Would the man and Van Cease get into a fight? I mean, I don't know. Or if this is some kind of a setup and they both grabbed her, but yeah, I never thought of the possibility that they're going back into her apartment after she's gone, but why would they be drinking beer cans and leaving the beer cans with their own DNA all over it? That doesn't make any sense to me. Not to mention the wine glass, one with lipstick, one without. Jeff UNP says, I'm thinking Jodi and the perp entered the apartment together. But what happened after? So did Jodi and the perp enter the apartment the night before or that day together? That's the question. And then who's the other guy? So was there a setup where this guy's accomplice, this guy stays over with Jodi that night, then he, as they're leaving, the accomplice jumps in and then both men shove her into the van and then leave? I don't know, a lot of questions here. Also, the movements of her Miata have been put into question, the potential that the car was staged after the fact. If she really did stay over at Van Cise's the night before or elsewhere. So a lot of unanswered questions.
I do know apparently nothing of value was missing. I do know the briefcase with the two notebooks did disappear.
Did she have a diary?
Okay, hold on a second. You're opening the door to a lot of theories, Jeff UNP. I think that Jeff UNP states no signs of struggle in the apartment. I think the accomplice came later with the car. Okay. If this is a Jennifer Kessie type situation, if that's what happened there, I'm not alleging it did or it did not. If she was never there, and some of these apartment witnesses, if they never heard her own scream, if they never heard Jodi's screams, well, supposedly Jodi talked to somebody. All right, let me get the exact other conversation as I play this.
It seems to me I heard something like that.
I think I heard that from Joanne.
Was the diary missing from the apartment? I don't know. I think.
How do you've spent a lot of time doing this. How do you, I mean, you're a guy who obviously has a lot of experience. How do you get access? I mean, you're well respected by the law enforcement community, I guess is what I have to say.
By some of them.
Yeah. But how do you get privilege to this information that a lot of us or a lot of people don't get? I mean, it's got to be an admirable thing for your character.
Well, the way I get, I mean, my background is in collections. I don't mean collecting stamps or bad debts. I mean collecting information.
Okay, so we have another wrinkle here. So supposedly the evening of the 26th, Jodi was supposedly at her apartment 8:24 p.m. and called her friend Kelly Torgeson, who was living in Mississippi at the time. So she called Mississippi. Jodi wasn't home, but she spoke. Kelly wasn't home, but Jodi spoke with Kelly's husband, Todd Torgeson. Now, unless Todd is in on the conspiracy, Todd told investigators Jodi sounded incredibly cheerful, completely normal, and gave no indication that she was worried about anything. He also noted that Jodi explicitly told him to tell Kelly not to worry about calling her back that night, leading investigators to believe she was settled in and intending to stay home for the night. So the other male potentially... All right, hold on a second. And this call was placed from her apartment landline to the Torgerson residence in Mississippi. So Van Cise initially claimed she came over at 9 p.m. on the 26th. Curious, isn't that curious? That's kind of late. He said that she stayed for 45 minutes, claimed she left between 9:45 and 10 p.m. So this is curious. So Torgerson said she sounded cheery, and she had just been at a golf tournament all day, so presumably she's a little tired. But again, she's in her 20s. Pretty peppy. So people in their 20s are not people in their 30s or 40s who might not be going out after a day of playing golf and returning and supposedly settling in. But if she never actually went to Van Cise's, because supposedly another neighbor said they heard a man banging on her door, the apartment door. Let me see if I can track that down. Because if Jodi never actually... Yeah, okay, actually, so there's multiple witnesses. So they said between 8 and 8:30 p.m., one of the across-the-hall neighbors said a man was yelling, "Jodi, open up, I know you're in there." So supposedly there was no response, and the man left and disappeared back down the stairwell. So she placed a call to Kelly Torgerson's husband 8:24 p.m. So Van Cise claims that Jodi came over at 9 p.m. So this is a problem here. We have a problem with the timeline. Scott Hawkins says, has anyone proposed that he actually went to her house? Yes. The witnesses think that maybe this man yelling, "I know you're in there," could have been Van Cise. Is it possible Van Cise came back later, 10, 11, 12 p.m., harmed her then? But then Amy Coons would have to be in on the conspiracy because she spoke to, she's claiming that she spoke to Jodi that morning at, what was that, 4? Let's see what the exact time. 4th, so... So Amy Coons' call was 4:10 a.m. approximately. And she said she spoke to a groggy Jodi saying she overslept. The second call was placed at 5 a.m. with no answer. Between 5 and 5:30 a.m. with no answer. So, yeah, this is... So I'm thinking the whole timeline could be off. So if something happened to her the night before... and Coons is in on the conspiracy, or what if Jodi's being held possibly at gunpoint or whatever, did she, and she sounded groggy because she hadn't slept, maybe she's beat up, maybe she's been drugged. If somebody is present there with her and coercing her, somebody who's drinking beer and using the toilet, a male, and coercing her into appearing normal during that call, and then they both go out, and then the accomplice shows up and they get her in the van. Yeah, Scott Hawkins says, what if he did make it inside? They had some drinks. He slipped something in the drink, and that's why she was groggy and missing work. Yes, that could explain that. Jeff UNP says, maybe slept on the couch, snuck up to her room when she slept, had slipped her a roofie. Jeff UNP says, I think Van Sice got mad. She did not want to party and then snapped and stalked and did her then. Yes, very possible. Very possible.
There's a lot of ways to collect information. My primary way, the internet didn't come out here until '97, but for the last 7 years, it's media off the internet. Now everybody thinks that, you know, in intelligence work we have some kind of a James Bond type that did with, you know, that never happened. There's an awful lot of information, even on a state or national basis, is collected by reading newspapers, reading technical magazines. It's nobody walking around with a knife in their boot and a gun in their back pocket. You don't carry guns anyway, because if you're pretending you're a librarian, and why are you carrying a gun? You know, so that's principally it. And then once I find something that's pretty interesting, I'll start in on the phone. Apparently I have a reasonably good phone technique, because I very seldom get turned down. And the other thing is, let's say I was trying to research illegal gambling. At least part of the population wouldn't give me any help at all, because they like to gamble. But in a case of a potential serial killer or the death of somebody like Jodi Huisentruit, whoever did this, he has no friends. Everybody in Iowa I've talked to, and I've talked to hundreds of people in Iowa and Minnesota and Wisconsin and clear down to Arizona and everything else, everybody is anxious to help. And by the same token, Alfonso Rodriguez, he hasn't got any friends. And these guys have to realize this, that the world is essentially out to get them, people that do things like this. They have zero support from the local community, unlike a successful terrorist who have an awful lot of support from the local community. And so it's very easy for me to get, if somebody does really know something, it's very easy for me to get the information, really.
Where are the best nuggets? Where do you get the best nuggets?
Not from law enforcement. People that were there and knew the situation. Relatives, well, not relatives necessarily, friends, possibly co-workers, stuff like that. You sort of get the preliminary information or the pointers from the media, and then so far as developing it down to a worthwhile, you know, I mean, you know, it would be things like that. People on the scene, I mean, that knew, not just in Jodi's case, in many other cases too. In this other case over in Ida Grove, Iowa that I mentioned, Ida Grove, I got tremendous, we were looking at another guy, or these other two guys, and people in the area knew these guys, and they were willing to do anything they could to solve, if you follow what I mean, to solve this case, because they knew these guys had probably, well, they...
Also, I wonder if Feldhaus here considered the possibility, if it was a cop and there is a vast conspiracy, how that would affect things.
They did do it. They just haven't been tried.
Let's talk a little bit about Missouri, and I know that this is something that you're still working on. Tell me about the skeleton that they found.
Well, they found a skeleton down there, and before you guys leave, I'll email this to you.
Okay.
The burial site, or Neolithic-like burial site. Girl disappeared back in February of 2003, or March of 2003, and they found her in February of this year in a large, very heavily forested, remote national park, federal park down there. And they seemed to think right away that it was this same girl. They found this grave, and a burial site would be, it's almost like a Neolithic burial site. Somebody went to a lot of work putting this thing together. Somewhat similar to something you'd find in pre-Christian Northern Europe. The only thing is, the girl they think they found in the burial site that disappeared back in March of 2003, her description doesn't match the description of the skeleton. The girl that disappeared had very poor dental work, and this girl, like Jodi, had excellent dental work. So the question remains, about what I can't figure out, how would she get clear down to Missouri? Then again, the Newton, Iowa area is pretty close to the Missouri border, isn't it? And doesn't that take us back to somebody we both have talked about? This is quite close to Branson, Missouri. Maybe somebody had gone down there to listen to the music. I don't know if I'm saying we know anybody that's in. I just something I never checked out. But if you're ever talking to anybody, they might mention that. I mean, isn't that Branson country western music? Yeah. Well, somebody might be quite interested in that, and they could go down there very easily. It's right down I-35. You can't miss. That's an interesting situation. It is. But
What's going on with that now?
no, I'm going to have it privately tested. Well, actually, the dental I'm going to send have sent Iowa DCI, so they can compare it with Jodi's. But every time we get started talking about it, this is true with Kristen too, we seem to come back to the same guy. You know?
What does that tell you?
It tells me I think some of us are on the right track. I mean, in life, there's such a thing as knowing things but not being able to prove it. Most of us know of the existence of a God or a higher power or whatever, but it would be very difficult to prove it. And there are criminal cases like that too. In her case, we don't have a body. No trace of her has ever been found. And that's pretty rare with the ordinary serial killer. Sooner or later, a lot of these finds are default finds. I mean, the Boy Scouts or hikers or hunters or something like that find the victim's body or remains. These searches like they were running up here for Drew's.
So I think he misspoke here. So I'm tracking down what he said. So there was a serial killer who was researched in connection with this case, Chris Revak, which we haven't gotten to yet, who committed suicide in a Missouri jail cell. But the body, this burial site supposedly was found by a hunter in March 2002 in an abandoned wooden orchard. And it was a young Caucasian female, same height and age as Jodi. And they had really good dental work, similar to Jodi. So after this interview was recorded, advanced DNA profiling and dental work like later this year. So this interview was early 2000. This was June 2004. So before the end of the year, the advanced DNA profiling came back on this skeleton, and it was Chandra Celeste, a woman who had gone missing from that area. It was not Jodi. But again, props to Fieldhouse for actually investigating and looking for this. I'm checking right now if they ever found out what happened to her. I actually can't find anything about this. Oh, never mind. It was Jane Doe. The dental records were not completely conclusive on their own. So St. Joseph County Coroner's Office, Indiana State Police kept the body classified as a Jane Doe. In late 2004, advanced mitochondrial DNA profiling and a deeper dive into original missing person officially identified the remains as a local missing woman. This resolution proved that the site was entirely unconnected to Jodi or an out-of-state serial killer. How does that? I mean, I don't know if I'd say that definitively proves. Let me see here. This is Brainerd Dispatch. Skeletons resembling Jodi. All right, hold on. It's behind a paywall.
Dean, 1,500 people and 500 ATVs aren't very effective. But nothing has ever been found at Jodi.
What do you think about when you look at who we're talking about, the specific person, playing with fire so many times, being a suspect in so many different crimes? How does somebody get that lucky, or how is someone that good?
I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine. Well, the first two cases we've discussed weren't adequately investigated because it was a very hot potato at the time, you know. As a matter of fact, and of course, let's admit it, in Mason City when this happened, there was a very hot potato going too, wasn't there? The difference between marijuana and methamphetamine. And I don't know.
Josh, we're going to have...
Yeah, you're going to have... What? I don't know. I haven't looked on. You want me to go and look at for weather? Of course, he can do it better than I can. I mean,
Give him a call too, see what he's thinking.
So this news article is saying that the remains were actually found in '96. A year and a half after Jodi went missing. And this article was from March 2002, so I need a newer one here. I don't know why it's so hard to find information on this here. Let's see here. Okay, so no name was actually given. Was still a Jane Doe, but apparently Jodi was excluded from the DNA, so it was tested. Supposedly, again, I can't find definitive evidence. This is so weird. Why is there nothing on this? This is really strange.
I think we should do that before anything.
Let me give him a call.
I've got to get some water and get something to drink. Josh,
You can just set that up.
I don't want to ruin $100, $500 worth.
Alright, so that's the interview. That's all there is there. So, okay, apparently there was some kind of a police release that excluded her remains, but so they don't know who it is. So they actually do not know. So remains are not missing Iowan. So this was a police release here. Dental records of an unidentified person in Indiana have been examined and compared to those of Ms. Huisentruit by a forensics odontologist, and he has determined they are not of Ms. Huisentruit, said Mason City Police Lieutenant Ron Vanderweerd. Who trusts this? So that apparently there was never a second opinion. I don't trust this at all. I don't trust that at all. So, all right, there you have it. We'll be examining plenty more media, new information, and new connections. So, yeah, that's it for this episode. And we will see you guys next time. Bruce McGuire signing off.